So it is 5 o'clock, but we are needing to wait on at least one more commissioner, so.
Here you go.
All right, so it is 5 o'clock, so I'm going to try and get this meeting going, and hopefully Commissioner LaFleur will join in with us. But welcome to the November 18th meeting of the Nantucket Conservation Commission. This meeting is entirely remote with all participants joining via Zoom. I ask that anybody who wishes to speak, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. And please remember to mute your phone or your device when you're not speaking so that you are not captured by audio and kind of a distraction for the meeting. I also want to remind everybody not to screen share their computer, as anything you may screen share might be captured by the meeting recording. So with that, we will begin tonight's meeting. The following items are continued this evening. Under notices of intent, we have Lower Pocomo Nominee Trust at 88 Pocomo Road, continued until December 2nd. We have Pocomo Point Realty Trust at 90 Pocomo Road, continued until December 2nd. We have 8 Walsh LLC at 8 Walsh Street, continued until December 2nd. The Land Bank at 13579 11 13 15 and 15A Myacomet Road will be continued until December 2nd. And then NIR Retail LLC at 4 Harbor Square is also continued until December 2nd. And under amended orders of conditions, Scannell at 119R Eel Point Road is also continued until December 2nd. So with that, we will open the meeting with public comment on items not being heard tonight. Mark?
Yeah, I have a question for you on the agenda, Ashley. What's the tradition for continuing an application? I'm concerned with the Pocomo Realty Trust at 88 and 90 Pocomo Road. That's been on for what seems like months, and I'm not sure it's fair to the abutters who might want to be heard to have it continued endlessly. Is there an end to the extensions, or?
I don't think we have an official end. I know we have had some projects that have gone over a year actually continuing, and generally speaking, we kind of hold their feet to the fire when commissioners are going to be turned over when we start to get to that time. But Jeff might have more details on this application. Jeff?
Not to this application specifically, but I think our past practice, Mark, in cases where things get continued for a certain period of time, we have required renotice to the abutters before it comes forward again. So that's something that as we work with the applicant, if they're going to submit new information to us and go forward, we'll probably be requiring them to put a new ad in the paper and then also recertify mail the direct abutters to let them know what date that's going to be back on the agenda. Because it does come up from time to time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry to interrupt, Ashley.
No, that's a perfectly fine question. All right, so public comment on items not being heard this evening. RJ?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My name's RJ Turcotte on behalf of the Nantucket Land Council. Just like to mention this evening that the new material that's being dumped down onto the bluff in Sconset, we had a member of the public bring a sample in. So it was about 400 cc's volume of that mitigation material. We brought it over to Yvonne Valancourt at UMass, and she's performed a preliminary sieve test on it, and it's almost 64% fines. So we're going to probably collect another sample and follow up for the next commission meeting, but just wanted to give commissioners a heads up that the material that's going down there has a lot of fines in it right now. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ, for letting us know and for checking up and making sure that the sediment deliveries are appropriate. Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Without trying to get into substantive discussion, is it acceptable to have the staff go and check that out as well?
Yeah, I think that would probably be appropriate. Jeff?
Yeah, we've been out there. So why don't, if we could, we'll definitely get back out there. I know our first look at it and the first collection of information we had, what didn't match that. So we might have to go back to a load and see what's there, but we'll definitely send someone back out to recollect and make sure that that material is what it's supposed to be.
Thank you, Jeff. And again, thank you, RJ, for bringing this to our attention. Hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it. I'll check YouTube and see if there's any public comment there. It does not look like it at this point. So we will move on in the agenda under notices of intent. And we will begin tonight with NISDA at 55 Wallwinnet Road, represented by Brian Madden.
Good evening, Brian Madden from LEC. It's been a little while since we last presented in front of you. I believe it was earlier in the summer. And the reason for the delay is that Natural Heritage had requested a botanical survey to be conducted on the property. And the project revisions are reflective of that survey results. And if you recall, project involves relocation of 2 new structures onto the property and some additional site work, including a dry laid patio on the back side of the existing building, some decking, utilities regrading and landscaping. There's also some proposed parking and septic upgrade outside the 100-foot buffer zone within the western portion of the lot. There's a BVW system that occupies the eastern portion of the site. There was also an addition onto the south portion of the dwelling, existing dwelling, that has since been removed. So the 2 new structures that are being relocated on site are from NISDA's Washington Street property that was recently in front of you guys for a move off. This is where they're going, proposed to go. One of those structures is outside the 100-foot buffer zone. One occurs between the 50 and 100-foot buffer zone. You can see some proposed regrading around those structures in subsurface infiltration systems to collect runoff from those structures. We are also proposing a vegetated screening buffer along the northerly edge of that limit of work and northerly property boundary, composed of cedars, inkberry, and arrowwood for the benefit of the neighbor to the north. The deck and patio, decking and patio are still being proposed as shown. And we've also depicted a proposed sandplain grassland area, or 2 areas, one that's going to be created and one that's going to be enhanced, and both being maintained. And with like the expectation that those areas will be mowed once a year. And they'll be defined between the developed footprint and the naturalized areas by proposed split rail fencing shown on the plan. So the proposed project that is currently proposed and revised does not require any waivers, complies with all the performance standards. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like, oh, Mark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian, I'm unclear as to what the purple irregular line is going around the barn and skirts the house. It doesn't seem to mark the 25, 50, or 100. It's in purple.
On my plan, the purple line is the 50-foot buffer zone that I'm seeing. Yeah.
Okay. I can't screen share, but if you if you take it off screen share, you can look at my camera. See what I'm looking at, Brian, which was submitted by you.
Oh, I can kind of see it. I think that was included in the drainage report. That has to do with modeling and runoff directions. And Don just popped on if.
Yeah, that's correct. That's in the drainage report. That just distinguishes different drainage areas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? If not, we'll open it up to the public. That does not look like we have anything on YouTube at this point. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close?
Yes, you do.
Brian, would you like to close?
Please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Harrison, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And that moves us on to Gilbert at 16 D Street, represented by Don Bracken.
Yes, good evening. Don Bracken representing the owners. As you know, we've been through a few revisions on this project over the last few months. We submitted revised plans that are before you today. Overall, we've reduced the existing deck size slightly. We've pulled it back 1/2 foot from the coastal bank. We removed the second floor deck from the proposed second floor, which was over the existing deck, minimizing, the amount of structure within the 25-foot buffer. We've relocated AC units in the outdoor shower. On this most recent plan, we showed more detail about where the helical piles to support the deck would be located, which are all outside the 25-foot buffer zone, as you can see on this plan in front of you. We submitted structural design plans. We hired a structural engineer to come up with a way to cantilever this. If you recall, we weren't really sure in the last discussions how much we could cantilever, but we had a structural engineer come up with a plan using beams and the helical screws as shown, to show that it can be done and support the weight of the deck. We hope we've been able to address all the concerns and be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. So we'll open it up for the public to see if there's any public comment on this one. Does not appear so yet on YouTube. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this one?
Yes, you do, Madam Chair.
Don, would you like to close?
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? So this is just,
Second, you can second it also.
this is just to close.
Yes, this is just a close.
So
Second.
seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Don.
Okay, thank you.
And that moves us on to Kane at 12 Pond Road, represented by Brian Madden.
Apologies. I think Joe Topham was going to join, but he was traveling. I just sent him a text message. Do you mind if we table this?
He's on the road to pick up his daughters, so he's still driving.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll carry on, and he may join in via phone. All right. Thank you. Brian Madden for the record. So 2 meetings ago, we presented this project and received some feedback and made some modifications. We decreased the size of the deck and maximized its separation to the vegetated wetlands. We increased the wetland setbacks. And in essence, the deck is just a wraparound to access the back. And we've expanded the proposed revegetation restoration area to effectively fill in that entire backyard area. And to reiterate, we are proposing to remove that 45 square foot shed that falls within the 25 foot buffer zone. So there's an overall decrease in deck in the 50 foot buffer zone. We've maximized those setbacks. We had submitted the HGC drawings that show some modifications, including what we talked about on that meeting. That connector between the existing and the proposed addition is intended to be elevated and supported by sonotubes to allow water to pass through, so it won't have a foundation wall. And to reiterate, the proposed addition is on a crawl space foundation, and we set the bottom footing above documented high groundwater here. So we feel, based on those revisions, that the site and project will have a net improvement to the resource areas over existing conditions. And I can, at this point, turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Linda?
The blue hand comes up. It's my understanding, Brian, that the existing house hasn't caused any adverse effects, and the wetlands have actually weren't there, then they were there, then they weren't there. And is that correct? The existing structure has been fine.
Yeah, the existing foundation does have a full basement, and based on what the property owner has relayed, they never had any groundwater issues within that area. The wetland itself is the typical neighborhood perched wetland system, that it's relatively small in size, and once you punch through that perch layer, it's clean sand below. But the existing structure right now, it's only 569 square feet, so a very small footprint.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I know I am still uncomfortable with new structure being built within the 50. So that's definitely a hang up for me on this application. Since that's kind of a pretty clear line in our regulations, and there does seem to be space on the property to either kind of move the house further away, or maybe, do something there. So that's kind of where I stand. Linda?
I'm familiar with this lot and this house, and I think the wetlands have actually changed since they built the house, but I don't think they have any intention of moving the house to get an addition for a growing family. Number one. Number two, if they were to try to move the house, that would cause a tremendous amount of disturbance with a new foundation. So I'm comfortable where it is.
Okay. Mark?
So I echo your thoughts. They have opportunity to move the addition to the, I guess it would be the north, if north arrow was up here. Move it up there toward the proposed garage studio and expand that, or move that somewhere to a different location. But I echo your thoughts, actually, on they have opportunity to build it somewhere else, and they probably should.
Seth?
I feel the same way, and I don't think a alternatives analysis has been rigorously done for this site. So I would hope that the applicant and their representatives would look at that. I understand the net benefit of removing the shed and restoring a wetland area within the 25-foot buffer zone, but adding additional structure to the 50-foot buffer zone, particularly something like a deck that could easily be placed outside, doesn't seem like when you do the accounting of benefits and detriments, it doesn't seem like it's going to turn out to as a long-term net benefit there. So maybe just look at a few other alternatives.
Any other comments from commissioners before I open it up to the public? Jeff?
I was just going to say, for those who didn't see, Mr. Topham was able to make it on. So you might want to restate some of your questions. He may be able to provide some information to those. Sorry.
I think most of the questions had to do with new structure within the 50 and alternatives analysis done for that. But other commissioners, feel free to restate more clearly if you would like to. Yeah. And I don't know, Brian, do you want to respond before we open it to the public?
Yeah, I think Joe would be able to chime in on some of the architectural limitations, what can and can't be approved by HCC. It just as it relates to some of the deck configuration and comparing existing and proposed. So there is a net decrease in the deck structural footprint in the 50-foot. We're increasing the setbacks off of the existing and removing 126 plus square feet. That's right up against a 25-foot buffer zone. And the purpose and intent of the deck is to function as an kind of access egress around the structure itself. And it's going to be elevated on sonotubes. And we've purposely minimized that limit of work. So it's only about a little over 5 feet off of that deck limits, and between 10 to 15 feet off of the proposed foundation for the addition. And so, it basically keeps people off of that backyard area and provides access around the structure. I think based on what is being proposed, it does provide a net improvement over existing conditions. It's less structure within the 50, moving it further away, elevated feature that does allow for infiltration through the deck spacing, and that opens up the opportunity for the restoration activities. I think Joe just dropped off, so I'm not, he can't get a connection. He's going in and out. Just responded. I guess at this point I'll turn open it up to the public and see if he can get back on.
Okay. Seth, I'll give it over to you and then the public.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm a bit confused as to what Mr. Madden was saying. Is the purpose of that proposed deck to provide access like into a doorway to the interior of the existing house? Or is it just to provide a passage around the backside of the property as a whole? Because if it's just property, you could just put a path or a patio there, which would be non-structural and provide that same access. And if it's to provide access into the existing house, the interior, it seems like the deck that's at the southeast corner there could be flipped to the northwest where the other proposed deck is, and provide access into the existing house from that side. I'll defer to, Joe about questions related to HCC and structurals, but from a logistic perspective, that all seems possible to me.
Thank you, Seth. So at this point, we'll open it up to the public. RJ?
Thank you, Madam Chair. RJ on behalf of the Land Council. Just to like to reiterate my comments from the last meeting that the commission should stick to a very black and white definition of expanding structures into the 50, especially in light of the Creeks project that just went through. So thank you.
Thank you, RJ. It doesn't look like we have any public comment on YouTube about this one. So at this point, Brian, what would you like to do?
Yeah, so I'm getting some messages from Joe, and I think we'll continue, but maybe just to before I do that, just to address Seth's comments. I don't believe that there's any entrance on that narrow connection, the wraparound porch, so to speak. I believe that there is a door on that backside adjacent to the connector. I see this as an opportunity to move the deck further away and minimize its footprint. I mean, the alternative is to leave the deck as it is. I feel like that may almost be where this is trending if we start to look at alternatives. We're attempting to propose as an improvement over existing conditions and feel we fit that bill. But certainly we can take a closer look at some of the alternatives here, and I mean, apologies that Joe was unable to connect and answer some of these questions.
All right. Thank you, Brian. So our next meeting is on December 2nd. Oh, Mark, do you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to let Brian know that from my standpoint, the deck is only a part of the problem. The part is new construction in the 50. So just that's my view. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So our next meeting is December 2nd. Would you like to continue until then?
Please.
Okay, so this will continue until December 2nd. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And that moves us on to AC Sandy LLC at 6 Sandy Drive, represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. Brian Madden from LEC. So based on the last meeting we were at regarding the proposed project involving house renovation reconfiguration with some additions, based on the comments we received, we are proposing to relocate that patio area entirely outside the 25-foot buffer zone as requested. You can see that there'll be a little pathway coming off the back stoop stairs to the patio outside the 25. And then that gave the opportunity to further expand upon the proposed restoration area that includes restoration of existing lawn areas and now covering over the the patio as well, and a portion of the existing structural footprint within the 25-foot buffer zone. And so that highlights the major changes. Again, this is moving the structure further away from the resource area, decreasing structure in the 25-foot, reductions in the 50-foot buffer zone, and elevating the structure on a flood zone compliant pier supported structure, relating or increasing, enhancing interest related to flood control and storm damage prevention. And as proposed, feel the project results in improvement over existing conditions. And with that, I'll turn over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Mark?
I guess, Brian, the problem still exists with new construction within the 50 foot, and that's something we don't look very fondly on. I mean, the addition or the house could be moved another few feet to the north, and it may have to shrink the addition a little bit to make it fit into the setbacks. But I think several commissioners, including myself, have spoken against any construction in the 50 foot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Brian, do you have a reply?
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Mark. And the proposed work where that new addition occurs in the 50-foot buffer zone, just to clarify that overlaps with the existing structure. It's the porch with the roof overhang. So it's just basically working within that existing structural footprint. There is one proposed porch corner over by the outdoor shower on the west side of the building that maybe is like 1-2 square feet into the 50-foot buffer zone. But again, that also overlaps with the existing structure footprint. So there's no per se new addition in the 50 foot. It just all overlaps with the existing footprint. And again, the intent is to maximize that separation while complying with zoning setbacks. And there is some modifications to make sure that that does take place. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no, so we'll open it up to the public on this one. Does not look like we have any public comment on YouTube. So Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this one?
Yes, if there are no more questions.
Brian, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Mark. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And that moves us on to 11 Woodbury Lane Realty Trust at 11 Woodbury Lane, also represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. Brian Madden, for the record. Just to reiterate, this is the site that with the house explosion and the reconstruction. As we discussed at that prior meeting, under the pre-existing conditions, again, there was 19 square feet of the existing garage on a concrete slab within the 50-foot buffer zone, and we're proposing to reduce that down to 6 square feet based on what we're depicting as the vegetated wetland boundary. What I didn't describe previously in the original application, the wetland boundary, just for everyone's information, was flagged visually. At the time, I was unable to dig into the ground as there was ongoing soil investigations with insurance implications going on. So it was done visually, and there was a fence along that back portion of the property line. So it was done visually. I did pull up a 2013 plan of record that there was an application filed for some proposed invasive species management within that wetland system itself. I'm sorry I didn't submit that plan to the commission, but that boundary would put the proposed redevelopment entirely outside the 50-foot buffer zone. And I just wanted to relay that to the commission as they deliberate and review this. We did take a look at trying to make that modification, and it's proving to be a very architectural difficulty. Again, it's only 6 square feet, and coupled with the decrease in the work in the 50-foot buffer zone, the restoration of the 25-foot buffer zone that we talked about at the last meeting, we feel that this does provide an improvement over existing conditions. In that back corner where we're talking about, it overlaps with the existing driveway, and it's landward of a landscape retaining wall. I hope folks popped out there to take a look at it, because I really think that work is de minimis in nature, and this will provide an improvement to the buffer zone associated with that wetland. And Michelle Hunton from Rubin and Rutman, who represents the applicant, is also on the phone call or on Zoom, but I guess we can turn it over to questions at this stage.
Yeah, I would like to, if I can just jump in with
Oh, yeah.
one comment. Thank you, Brian. Again, I'm Michelle Hunton from Rubin and Redmond. We're working with Stephen Cohen here. I wanted to ask the question, and I don't know if the commission knows the answer offhand, but I was wondering when the amendments were added to the regulations to include the 50-foot no build zone and the 25-foot no disturb zone, because we're thinking that the grandfathering definition in the regulations, which basically allows the maintenance of existing structures at the time of the Wetlands Protection Act or regulations, may apply. We know the house was built in 92, which is after the regulations, obviously, but we're thinking that the no build zone and no disturb zone may have been added after 1992, and those zones weren't there at the time the house was built. So they didn't apply at the time. And because this house was, destroyed by no one's fault, and we're just rebuilding essentially in the same footprint and actually decreasing the impervious area, we think that depending on the timing those amendments were added, that this project, in terms of any effect on the no build zone, the 6 square feet, would actually be grandfathered.
That would be a good question for Jeff. I don't think any of the commissioners know that offhand. I feel like the letter that Glenn sent maybe identified the dates of those. Was he not sure?
No, we're not sure. I work with Glenn. I did see in your regulations that it states that it was amended in 2008 and 2013. So it may have been one of those times, but I don't know if there were other amendments, earlier than that. But it's just a question because that may apply here. But I don't know how we'd find the answer to that.
I guess this is a good one, Jeff, that maybe we reach out to town council and see their opinion on this application and grandfathering, considering possible amendments, because I think they'd give us the best answer.
Sure, I certainly can. I know from our perspective, I've been trying to dig out, and I apologize for not getting back to you today.
Oh, no worries.
But trying to dig it out because there's a long history of it. And I know going back, I think in our files, we have about 11 or 12 different versions of regulations that have been adopted over time. And we're just trying to sort out which one it came in first and just haven't had the time to get through that. But I can certainly put that question to council too and see what their thoughts are. See what George says. And I can definitely track that date down for sure. It just takes some time to get through all of the versions.
Thanks, I'd appreciate it. I mean, I think even if the grandfathering provision didn't apply, as Brian stated, we think that section 1.03 FC applies, which basically states that this project has a long-term benefit or improvement. So we think it can still be approved under that.
Thank you. So at this point, I guess we'll open it up to commissioners' comments and questions. So Seth, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff, if we're already getting legal opinions, can we also ask for specificity on the grandfathering or pre-existing use definition in the regulation? Because it talks about, use and normal maintenance, but it says that existing structures can't be extended or modified. And I understand the circumstances here are rare in that the house exploded and burned down, but independent of the circumstances that happen on site, I don't think this qualifies for what would be considered use and normal maintenance. This is a redevelopment. It's essentially a raise and redevelopment, although the raise was unintentional. But it's not a maintenance project. It's a unintentional raising and redevelopment project, in my opinion. Beyond that, I think that we definitely need the information regarding the wetland boundary submitted by Mr. Madden. If there is a way to get back onto the site and do an updated delineation that has soils, that would be even better. I think looking at the previous application, I think you said it was from 2013, is great, but that's almost a decade ago at this point. So an updated delineation that's based on soils and hydrology would be beneficial if possible. And if it shows that the structures are outside of the 50-foot buffer, I don't think there's any concern with the proposal on this site. So I think it's in your benefit to do that anyway.
Thank you. And just to jump in through the chair, yeah, we can certainly take a closer look at that. And I believe we do now have the ability to do some soil investigations. And maybe the simplest thing to meet Jeff out there at some point and review it in person with him.
Jeff?
Yeah, we're happy to schedule that with Brian whenever, if that's what the commission would like to do. It would probably be easiest just to do it together. So that way we're not reviewing and then going out to review and then making adjustments. We can just go determine it once and for all.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
I think in addition to submitting a plan with, potentially different wetland boundaries, if you could submit a plan that actually shows a little more clearly like the mitigation plantings you're proposing, because it's hard for me. You're talking about reestablishing the 25, but then the new edge of lawn is, weaves in and out of the 50, just to have a little bit better picture of kind of where the shrubs and things are going.
Yeah, we had Atlantic had provided a landscape plan. That was part of the original application, but I know that that wasn't brought up on screen. But and I think that may more clearly illustrate how everything fits together.
Okay, I must have missed it.
Oh, there it is.
Well, there we go. Just missed it in all the pages. Thank you,
Long
Jeff.
agenda.
All right, and I think I saw Mark, your hand go up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Brian, I'm unsure if the red line delineates new construction and the black line delineates where the house was. Is that red line in the back corner that does intrude in the 50-foot, was that part of the original house back there, or is that new?
Red it is proposed. Yeah. However, you can see where maybe there's a little confusion. The proposed stone patio is new, but it's also shown in black. The red is the footprint of new proposed.
But the house before it blew up was not back there, was it?
There was a secondary cottage structure in the back. That's what that concrete slab that extends into the 50-foot by 19 square feet, as we're showing right now.
That
Okay,
was the
I-
garage apartment that blew up
Yeah.
first. That's
Okay.
what started it.
Linda,
Okay.
please don't interrupt because it gets a little chaotic.
That's clear. That clarifies it for me, Brian. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? All right, so
just one.
Linda,
Brian, are they only going to reconstruct the house and not that? That was a fairly sizable structure back there. They're not going to reconstruct that either anymore.
The garage with the living space above.
Yeah.
Basically, that concept is sliding further south, closer to Woodbury, and adjoining the existing or the proposed main house.
All right. So
it's
it's
gonna be-
moving forward.
Correct. Yeah, and it's going to
Okay.
overlap with the existing driveway, and it's still intended to be a garage with one spot parking interior.
Okay.
and it looks like Seth has another question or comment.
Sure, just so I'm clear here, there historically was two structures on site, a house and then the garage. And
Correct.
now the suggestion is to combine those structures into one large structure.
Correct.
So I personally think that gives further evidence of that not applying the grandfather or pre-existing use, because it's extension and alteration of the structure beyond its initial footprint.
Thank you, Seth. Brian?
If I could just ask just a hypothetical question, just for like frame of reference purposes. So if the reconstruction was to occur in the exact same footprint, how would the commission generally feel about that as a grandfathered activity?
I think to me, that would be a more clear grandfathered reconstruction. I'm
Okay.
not sure about other commissioners. Seth?
Yeah, without getting a little too theoretical here, if all of the walls started to fall off your house one by one, and the structure was in really bad shape, and you waited until it had collapsed, and then you decided to rebuild the structure in that place, the exact same footprint, the exact same materials, that's a little bit negligent in my opinion, but it would be considered maintenance of an existing use. So in my opinion, what happened is that sort of process just happened all at once, unfortunately. No one wanted the house to explode. But if it was rebuilt in the same footprint, with the same layout, I would say that was maintenance. But combining multiple structures into one and extending the footprint of them and trying to swap square footages between them, that is no longer maintenance in my opinion. That is a rebuild project.
Thank you.
Well-
Brian, do you want to go ahead and then Jeff?
Jeff can speak.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I think if people are uncomfortable with the grandfathering, especially since it sounds like we're going to be back out on site, as much as I hate to say it, and I hope it really hasn't happened, I feel like somewhere else in the Commonwealth, someone has had a house that's burned down, that's been rebuilt, that's required an order of conditions. I might reach out to Mass DEP and get their feelings on it too, because I'm sure it's come up where a house has either been destroyed by fire or by wind, or something's happened and required, and how they viewed reconstruction and reconfiguration with that. So maybe over the interim between now and the next hearing, I'll try to track that down, because there may already be existing either case law or permitting history for something similar that may provide some clear guidance as well.
Thank you, Jeff. Brian?
No, thank you very much. And, I don't think we need to belabor hypotheticals, but I appreciate the feedback. And we'll take a closer look, meet Jeff out there, review that wetland boundary a little bit more definitively with soils, and can come back to you.
Okay. And I know I don't think I opened this one to the public. There seem to be no questions on YouTube at this point. So is there anybody on the call from the public who'd like to speak? Also looks like no. So Brian, would you like to continue until December 2nd?
Please.
Okay, so this will continue until December 2nd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that moves us on to Nantucket Island's Land Bank at 19 Wauwinet Road, also represented by Brian Madden.
Could we possibly, there's also an amendment request for 23 and 25 Wauwinet. Can we hear these together or just table this to later on so it matches up with the amendment request?
I guess we could move this to the bottom of our notices of intent, and that'll meet right up with the amendments. Does that work for everybody? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that will move us on to Spencer at 3 Fulling Mill Road, represented by Brian Madden.
Getting sick of me already, probably. This project involves some vegetation management work. The homeowners recently bought the property. There was previously a pool that was approved on this lot. The clients, the new owners, have no interest in constructing the pool. They like it as is. But after spending a little bit of time, there's 3 cedars that are basically in a view shed that the clients would like to open up. And basically what the intent is to relocate these cedars and plant a new cedar. I gave some diameters of the cedars to be relocated and submitted some photographs. You can see it in that location. The intent is to transplant them. If for some unknown reason that they are unable to be transplanted, we would plant new cedars of equal DBH value. We are proposing to plant a total of 4 to improve existing conditions. What's also being proposed is there's some foxgrape that is basically strangling all the vegetation, including a black cherry sapling within a small portion of the coastal bank buffer zone. Actually straddles the coastal bank. That width or that length is 25 linear feet. Is a very small portion of the overall slope coastal bank on the property, which is equivalent to the flood zone. The existing foxgrape would just basically be trimmed, cut at the stem, and then pulled off where feasible. And if it's wrapped around existing vegetation, native vegetation will be left to desiccate in place. Basically, it's intended to just promote the health of the existing understory, which is largely bayberry, and that black cherry sapling. There is additional fox grape further to the north along the slope that's not as aggressive, but that area was noted as being pretty significant and, hurting the native vegetation. And I would also say that there are multiple other cedars on the property. And again, the intent is to add a new cedar so there would be an improvement over existing conditions. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very uncomfortable with this project as proposed. I think it's a creative way to do vista pruning, and I really don't see how there could be a waiver request that is justified for moving trees that are currently stable and holding the 25-foot buffer zone just above the bank in place to another spot. It's a nice way to open up a better view shed, but I don't really think it's in the best protection of our wetland interests. In addition to the fox grape management area, in general, I think it's okay to prune fox grape as needed. I think from the photos, there is some evidence that under that one specific black cherry, it's choking that one tree out. Other than that, it seems like it's just growing as a normal native vine does and not posing any issue. And that's a well-vegetated bank right there. I would hate to see excessive disturbance to that bank, which may create, conditions of soil disturbance or vegetative disturbance. I just don't see this as being able to comply with the protections of wetland interests at the site at all, frankly.
Thank you, Seth. I know I am also uncomfortable with this one because it is native vegetation. And I also think logistically transplanting those cedars will be more difficult than it seems and will disturb a fair amount of soil in order to get enough root material to actually have the cedars survive. So I don't know how feasible that even is. And I realize that if they don't survive, you'll plant new ones, but I worry this opens up the door for, every homeowner who has a water view to want to move their vegetation, to a better spot that works for the human and not maybe the buffer zone.
Appreciate the feedback. Hypothetically, again, I think there's opportunities because this is a relatively limited area that we're looking to open up, and certainly there's other opportunities to plant new cedars elsewhere on the property as well. I mean, we can certainly add more cedars to help expand upon the buffer zone if the commission would be interested in that.
Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My comment isn't really related to the cedars at all. I understand the wanting to match the cedars in kind at a new site, but the amount of disturbance, or actually increase it by one, but the amount of disturbance that is going to be required to do that does not serve our interests. If the goal here is to get a better view of Folgers Marsh, there's many other interventions at that site that are possible to get a better view. You could elevate the deck. You could build a viewing platform outside the 50-foot buffer. There's lots of opportunities to get better viewshed management without having to disturb the bank and the 25-foot buffer zone itself.
Thank you, Seth. Any other comments, questions from commissioners? Looks like no. Brian, were you going to say something?
No, I appreciate the comments. So this is an elderly couple that purchased the home, and the patio is at grade. So they're not looking to do any significant renovations. They're just, again, prefer to be sitting on the back patio and having nice views. I know the regulations don't speak to pruning guidelines or anything along those lines, but would the commission be willing to entertain some Vista pruning out there while keeping those cedars in place?
I mean,
in addition to the new plantings.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Vista pruning does not, do anything to benefit our resource areas. So I would say no. I don't know how the other commissioners feel. I mean, we just have such issues island-wide with people Vista pruning that for us to permit it in this case, I don't feel like it's within our regulations to do that.
And just to be clear, that would come hand in hand with new cedar plantings as proposed.
Seth, did I see your hand start to go up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and I share your concerns. I think Vista pruning is just as detrimental as moving the cedars, and actually in the long term, maybe even more detrimental because it's going to require annual or multiple times a year people walking into that 25-foot buffer, disturbing the soil through compaction and doing work. You're also, you're not taking a lot off probably, but all it takes is one landscaper who's a little bit too gung-ho to take too much of that cedar off and make it in a state where it's not going to photosynthesize effectively and die. I've seen it before. I think that I understand what the client's aim is here, and I'm sympathetic to the fact that they want a different view. But I'm going to take a hardline opinion that there's just no scenario in which Vista pruning or moving those trees is beneficial to the protections of the wetland interests that we're jurisdictionally supposed to protect. I think that I've said my piece, and I appreciate you coming in, but I don't support this.
Thank you, Seth. Any other questions or comments from commissioners before I open it up to the public? Looks like no, so I'll open this one up to public comment. Jeff?
We did have one on YouTube from Burton Balkand, who said, Fulling Mill Road, there's an osprey pole near this site, and I would hope that the removal of trees would not impact the ospreys in a negative way.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Looks like no. So Brian, what would you like to do with this one?
I'd like to continue to the second, and we'll circle back with the clients, owners, see what they want to do, but appreciate everyone's feedback, and certainly not unexpected. So thank you.
And thank you for actually coming in with an application for this and not just, thank your clients for not just doing the Vista pruning, because I think this is an important conversation.
I agree. Thank you.
So this will continue until December 2nd, and that moves us on to Daisy at 14 Plover Lane, represented by Brian Madden.
All right. Brian Madden from LEC. This proposed project involves the construction of a new single-family dwelling off Plover Lane. This lot It's basically the last undeveloped lot off of Plover Lane that extends out to Wawinnet Road. The western half of the lot is all occupied by vegetated wetlands. The proposed house is located outside the 50-foot buffer zone. There's a dry laid stone patio on the backside. A little bit of regrading associated with that. The limit of work has specifically been laid out to preserve the 50% undisturbed buffer between the 25 and 50-foot buffers. There is existing well on the property, existing septic system, a leach cesspool that is being replaced by a new IA system and a new proposed well. The proposed structure, the proposed project itself doesn't require any waivers. And so with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Mark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian, where will the driveway be?
There's a pervious driveway coming off of Plover, just basically south of.
Oh, I see. Oh, I was looking at Walnut Road. I see where you are. Okay, sorry. Good. No, my question's answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no, so we'll open it up to the public. If there's public comment on this one. Looks like not at this point. So Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this?
Yes, you do.
Brian, would you like to close?
Please.
Is there a motion to close? Mark?
Second.
All right, so by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Harrisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
You get a brief break, Brian.
Madden show.
Right, this moves us on to Tristram's group at 41 Starbuck Road. And it looks like we have Ryan Maxwell on for this one.
Yep, thank you. Ryan Maxwell, Bracken Engineering. So this notice of intent is for a septic system upgrade within 100 feet of a BVW and a coastal bank. All of the proposed work is going to fall outside of 25 feet to those resource areas. If you look on the plan, the existing leach field and septic tank is located just south of where our new drip dispersal field is going to go, and those components are just going to be abandoned in place. The new system is a microfast tank with the drip dispersal field. So overall, this is just a much better setup and an improvement over existing conditions. That's pretty much it. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ryan. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Seems pretty straightforward. Looks like no. So we'll see if there's any comments or questions from the public on this one, which at this point is also no. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close?
Yes, you do.
Great. Ryan, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
A motion made by Linda. Seth, do you want the second?
Yep.
So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Harrisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Ryan. And that moves us back, I guess, to Land Bank at 19 Wawinnet Road, which does tie into one of our amended orders of conditions, which is NISDA at 23 and 25 Wawinnet Road.
Thank you very much. Brian Madden for the record. Must have missed me.
Yes.
Why don't you bring us easy ones, Brian, like that one was?
Well, hopefully this one's easy. It's a feel-good project. So the project involves relocating an existing barn on 19 Wallwinnet, which is now owned by the land bank, back to property owned by NISDA on the northerly abutting property. This is locally known, or in the past known as the Heifer Barn. It was previously located in the relocated footprint we are proposing. I think if you go back and look at some of the historic aerials, it pops up or is still in place in the 70s and subsequently was moved over to number 19. And it's essentially just relocating it back to the historic location. The barn itself, we've shown the route where the move is going to take place. So Eat Fire Spring flows through both properties. We've shown the locations of where it's culverted and have flagged where there's open aired portions of the stream. And so there's also a large willow tree that is shown on the plan, and we submitted some photographs. The barn is going to be moved to protect that willow tree. There's not going to be any disturbance to it. We are proposing to install some erosion controls up against the open air portions of the stream. Some of that move is going to occur within the 25-foot buffer zone, but where that's all lawn area north of the barn. And then there's a vegetated strip along the property boundary that's primarily occupied by autumn olive and bush honeysuckle and privet. So that is the shortest, narrowest width of vegetation along that property boundary. There will be BMPs installed to protect the integrity of the stream and the culvert. Steel plates would be installed over it as necessary. And then the footprint itself will be restored in kind, and that vegetated strip along the property boundary will be replanted with native species. And the proposed route then will follow the existing driveway, and again, back to the historic location of the structure. And most of the concrete slab or portions thereof are still present, as noted on the plan. Some of it is overgrown with some vegetation, but the new barn location is outside the 50-foot buffer zone. You can see the 100-foot buffer zone. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few things related to the move of the barn itself. So you said that there was that vegetated strip of invasive species. I'm presuming that those will all be cut and removed.
Yeah, so, a sizable width will be necessary to allow the barn to move through. I did confirm with Rachel at the land bank that they're proposing to fill that area in with bayberry, sweet pepper bush, winterberry, and arrowwood. And
Great.
again,
So,
sorry. I was just gonna say, under existing conditions, it's mostly privet, autumn olive, and honeysuckle.
yep, that's great. I'm glad those things are coming out, but we just need to make sure we have conditions in there for the proper disposal of those species that are being removed.
Okay.
And then I don't know if you said there will be like BMPs enforced, but I don't know if there's going to be any more specifics about like the movement plan that are submitted or just what's submitted already?
I think Toscana's going to work. And so I think we can certainly coordinate with staff in advance and iron out all the methodology, but steel plates would be placed over that culvert to protect it. And it would be done, very similar to a typical, house move. Any portions of the lawn that get disturbed will be restored to pre-existing conditions, and maybe some additional plates or plywood boards would be installed to prevent any rutting or turnover of the soil material.
Thank you. That all makes sense. Yeah, we might need some conditions on fill and replanting of species, but other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Seth. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? No, we don't have Ian today to talk about flashbacks, but I remember filling my water bottle in Strong Wings Camp from that little spring many years ago.
May want to boil that now.
You may not want to do that now.
Oh, no. I mean, this was many years ago. We also swam in Hummock Pond,
That we did.
All right, so we will open this one up to the public if there isn't any more commissioners' comments. Does not look like we have any public comment. So Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close, I guess, the 19 Wawinnet? Or are we closing all three at the same time?
Sure, you could certainly make a motion to close the public hearing on 19 Wawinnet Road and close and issue the amended order for 23 and 25 Wawinnet Road.
Also move.
I'll
Okay,
second that.
all right, so motion made by Mark, seconded by Linda. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Sorry, I have a procedural question.
yep.
So with the amended order, if it's just going to be, closed and issued, is now when we would add any additional conditions that might be relevant onto it?
Yeah.
Yes, we would have that discussion now.
So can we have that discussion?
Sure, well, why don't just close the public hearing on both of those, and then we can take up the amended order separate then.
Okay.
So to avoid,
Mark would need to amend his motion
yeah, so,
to just close the two public hearings.
And I'll amend my second.
okay, so Mark, are you amending? Getting the thumbs up. So roll vote then, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
Okay, so that closes the public hearing and kind of moves us on to discuss NISDA 23 and 25 Wawinnet under the amended orders. Right, Jeff, or did I mess that up?
Sure, no, that's fine. Let me just get something up here. I think the easiest way to do it would probably be to condition the two projects the same for 19 and 23, since there's some property line. So I guess the easiest way to probably do this is to go ahead and look at the draft order for, and I can share it on the screen too, if it's easier. Look at the draft order for, can't remember, 19 Wawinnet on the screen. And then to get the conditions put together on that, and then just add those to the existing order. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Sorry, my brain was not being helpful there. Didn't have my orders open yet. So, so I think given the discussion that we've had, I'll put this one up on screen, and then let me find a couple conditions that we're looking for. All right, so I think from the discussion is we would add that condition 19, the fill condition that we've been using, and then condition 20, that any invasive species material removed from the site just add that any invasive species material removed from the site shall be properly disposed of at the Nantucket landfill. We want anything else?
Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, any areas that are disturbed along the movement path be revegetated with a native seed mix.
So, sorry, Seth, I took some liberties with it really quickly. So I put any areas disturbed by the moving of the structure are required to be restored using a native seed mix or native plantings, just to wrap in that other vegetative strip that I know they have the protocol in place for the clethra and winterberry and the other species, but just to put them in there and give them the choice if they want to use those shrubs to make sure that they know that they can.
That sounds fine to me.
Thank you.
So I would like to make a motion to now issue the amended order of conditions as amended by these three conditions, 19 through 21.
Okay, thank you, Seth. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Brian. So that moves us on to Dudley LLC at 15 Aurora Way, represented by Ryan Maxwell.
Thank you. So Ryan Maxwell, Bracken Engineering. This project was issued an order of conditions back in 2017, which we amended back in June of this year. So we're back again to hopefully amend it one more time. And I'll just go over some of the plan changes. So what was approved on the June plan from this year was a 2,000 square foot house with a hot tub and a patio surrounding it, and a roughly 370 square foot garage. So the garage and hot tub have been removed, and the house has been reduced to about 1,900 square feet and shifted a little northerly on the lot. And the applicant is now proposing to construct a pool with a patio surrounding it. The pool will meet the 2-foot groundwater separation, and all of the structures remain outside the 50-foot buffer to the 2 wetlands that affect the property. And we've also added some dry wells to just to help mitigate any runoff issues. I think that's it for this. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ryan. So Jeff, given where that pool is positioned in respect to the 2 wetlands, I think we would need some pretty hefty pool conditions, monitoring the water levels and making sure everything gets removed from site. Because that just seems too easy for a pool company to try and make the water disappear back there. Any questions or comments from commissioners on this one? Mark?
Can they get a big truck back there to pump it out periodically?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Can you repeat, Mark?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Can they get a big truck back there, a water truck that's empty to pump the pool out when it's required in the winter or requested in the winter? I don't think those big trucks have a vacuum that will be that long a hose. Maybe they do, but that's a long way to pump out water.
Yeah, I don't believe there's any way to get vehicular access back there, but it's about, if you park in the driveway, it's probably within 100 feet. I mean, if that's what's required, then they'll have to certainly find a truck that can manage that.
Yes, Mark?
Follow up. If we'd like to have a report from a pool maintenance company that they can pump it out at that distance, because it would be too easy just to put a hose over the side and pump it into the wetlands. So I think I'd be assured, I'd feel assured if we could have a pool company tell us that they can reach that length of a hose to pump it out.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. That's definitely a good question. Seth, I thought I saw your hand start to go up.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mark, for asking for that. I think having the pool company with a plan in place of how they'll do that will make sense. I know that it's definitely possible to get water out of a structure without having a truck there. You know, on the prescribed fire crew out here that I'm part of, we've pumped water out of a pond with nothing but a Honda motor and some hose. So it's easy to get water out of somewhere, but it's, you know, it needs to be done right with a procedure in place.
Thank you, Seth. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Looks like no. Wondering if we have any questions from the public on this one. Also looks like no at this point. So commissioners, are we looking for Ryan to come back with a plan from a pool company, or looks like we're getting one thumbs up? So
Is it possible to just condition it? I would assume that somebody can get that job done.
I just as soon get it off the table and have Jeff okay this.
okay, Seth?
Yeah, I mean, procedurally, if we condition that we need a plan in place from the pool company and no pool company can do that, they'll be required to come in and amend the permit again, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess we could say prior to any construction.
Let's say that. That's fine by me.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
So Jeff, do you think you've scribed out our additional conditions?
All right, I'm going to share them real quickly as we've been kind of going here. So I added, excuse me, condition 22 that just reads, the pool should not be drained or discharged into an area within the jurisdiction of the commission. All water drained from the pool shall be removed from the site. 23, the pool should not be chemically treated between November 1st and May 1st. 24, all chemical treatments shall stop 3 weeks prior to any draining or discharging of any draining of the pool. Sorry, because we're not going to be discharging at all. 25, all lighting shall be directed downwards and away from the resource area. And then the last two, I think, speak to what we were just talking about. That 26, the applicant shall provide the contact information for the company maintaining the pool the pool company shall provide 48-hour notice of any draining to the commission. And then 27, just prior to the start of work on the pool, a drainage plan for the pool shall be required for staff approval.
Thank you, Jeff. I think those look good. Does anybody have any thoughts? And if not, is somebody willing to make a motion to issue the amended order?
I'll make that motion.
All right, I think Seth beat you with his hand.
No, I do have a thought, and if Jeff could put the plan back on the screen for a second.
The plan or the order?
No, not the plan, the order, because I thought that Mr. Maxwell said this would meet the 2-foot separation to groundwater, but we're saying that is a waiver that's not meeting that.
So I think the easy way to deal with that, because we granted the 2-foot separation related to the structure originally. So I think maybe why don't at the end of the waiver, we'll just put a statement, this waiver does not apply to the pool as shown. Just add that statement to the end that this waiver does not apply to the pool as shown on the second amended plan of record.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if we didn't put that, then theoretically they could, build a 30-foot deep pool. And I know they're not going to, but I think they could if that's not in there.
Yes, and then I'll update the rest of that stuff, but.
Thank you for catching that, Seth.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry, it's one of those projects that when you get into like the second amendment of projects that things start to overlap or things that were approvals for something else, you don't want to apply. So that's an excellent catch, Seth. So thank you.
So at this point, we'll throw it back out there. Would somebody like to make a motion to issue the amended order?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
And that moves us on to AC 007 Properties at 46 Walsh Street, represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm before you tonight with a request for an amended order of conditions to permit a second-story deck within land subject to coastal storm flowage to connect to existing decks. It's the extent of the project.
Thank you, Art. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners on this one? Looks like no. Thank you, Jeff, for pulling this up.
Sorry, I was just a little slow trying to transition out of writing orders into back to plans. Art was too fast.
Sorry, it's a lot of toggling windows. All right, so looks like no questions or comments from commissioners. I'll ask and see if there's any public who would like to comment on this one. The public's been pretty quiet. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to issue the amended order? I'm assuming, are
Yes, you
you
do.
wanting us to issue? Is there a motion to issue?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Art.
Thank you.
And this moves us on to Abbott and Hammer at 8 Hulbert Avenue, represented by Paul Santos.
Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors. This is an amended order of conditions request for 8 Hulbert Avenue. We previously came before you for this piece of property. It's a developed residential lot on the south side of Halbert Avenue. It's both in the floodplain, and to the south, there is a vegetated wetland that you see before you highlighted in green. So the entire property is in land subject to coastal storm flowage, and we do have this vegetated wetland along the south side of the property. The order of conditions that we presently have is for the elevating of the existing building to place it in compliance with the flood zone, the current flood zone regulations. Within this request, and I had this plan sent to Jeff today because I think the architects explained it a little better than I probably did in my original request. The request is for an expansion of a second floor roof plane, which is indicated in red on the plan that you see before you. This roof plane will extend over an existing deck. There is no enclosure on the first floor level, and they're extruding out a second floor gable by approximately 3 feet from where it would exist today. So extend the gable out 3 feet on the second floor. The roof plane, the roof line comes with it, essentially, because of the nature of the backside of that house. The roof plane gets extended to accommodate the gable and the architectural features on the back of the house. And that is the extent of the work. The property itself, the building itself is within the 50-foot no build. It's a pre-existing building. You'll see this, there's 2 lines on the plan. You see the 25-foot no disturb, and you see the 50-foot no build. This work does occur between the 25 and 50, albeit on the second level of the existing dwelling, above what is already existing structure. Happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Paul, below the proposed gabled area, that's a deck, or is that a patio?
That's an existing deck with a stairway. You see the stairway to the right. That's an existing wood deck.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners?
I'm just trying to make up my mind about whether I think this is considered a proposed structural addition, and I'm not really sure. I mean, if that gable and that roof was, had posts going down and touching that deck, even if it was enclosed or not, I think that would be a structural area. But if it's just overhanging from the existing footprint, it's like putting a roof on an existing structure. It's like putting 2 roofs on top of each other on an existing structure.
Yeah, there is, I think, in the within the application, a picture of the back area, but you're exactly right, Seth. I mean, I think this is the only thing I think that hopefully sets us apart from some of the other applications we've heard tonight and we've dealt with recently is, yeah, this is all occurring on that. It's basically extending that existing roof line. And for some architectural reason, I think, obviously extending the gable end of it in order to make the massing on the back apparently look like they've got to extend the roof line itself with it.
Thank you, Paul, for that explanation, and Seth for your questions.
Oh, there's a picture of it right there. So that's the gable that's getting extended.
Thank you, Jeff, for pulling this up for some perspective for everybody. Mark?
So I guess, Paul, my question is, if the deck were not there, would this be permittable? Given the 50-foot rule?
I think under the present way that you've been viewing applications, I think the commission would probably question that component of it, only because it would be new structure within the 50.
So I'm
So-
struggling with, does a deck count then as being in, I mean, it's already in the zone. But then can we rationalize ourselves to think that that's going to be okay to allow that construction in the 50 foot?
Yeah.
That's what I'm sort of wavering on, Paul.
Well, deck is structure. You're under your definition. The existing deck is treated as structure. But again, I don't know. I guess the whether it's on the second floor roof line, it's not. Well, I guess the gable end extended would be, that's approximately 3 feet. But for the most part, the roof line is a roof line extension. It's not additional living space. It's an extension of the roof line.
Seth, I saw your hand go back up, and then Linda, I'll go to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do think this meets the technical definition of a structural expansion within the 50-foot buffer. And I think we do need to require a waiver for that. But I don't think that this is detrimental because it's in the same structural footprint of an existing structure. I think essentially if somebody came into us and they had a deck that existed and they wanted to put, like, let's say a pergola on that deck, I think we would probably permit it because it's structure in a structural footprint that already exists. I just see this as like a permanent shade feature with another permanent shade feature, a roof on top of it. It's not changing the structural footprint. But maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I see it.
And we do have, under the original order, we did receive waivers for this project. So this order does have waivers for structure as the work that we had done previously, we did need the waivers, even in elevating the structure and some other work we were doing. We were extending stairs, moving stairs, extending some of the work on the back side of the house. So we do have under this order, the waiver in place for the structure in the 50-foot setback.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you, Seth, for kind of working through your thought process. Linda?
I was going to say the exact same thing, but probably not as intelligently as Seth. So I agree with Seth.
Thank you. All right, I think I am in agreement on this one as well, that it is, although it is new structure, it's over structure and is not kind of increasing the overall structural area or impacting any more than there already are impacts from that structure. At this point, I'll just check to see if there's any public comment on this one. Does not look like any on YouTube. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to issue the amended order?
Yes. And just from a staff perspective, when Paul originally filed this, and I think he and I even spoke about it, I mean, we even wrestled about whether to apply for this as a minor mod or an amendment. And I think we decided to go amendment for this very purpose, as we weren't really sure. But in our minds, I think we agree with Seth's assessment that it seemed fairly straightforward with the other structures and components of what's going on.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. So Paul, I'm assuming you'd like us to issue tonight?
Yes, please.
Okay, is there a motion to issue the amended order?
So moved, Madam Chair.
A motion made by Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Interesting twist on our regulation, but aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
And that moves us on to Hedges LLC at 10 Bassett Road, represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you tonight with a request for an amended order of conditions. This is the in response to the enforcement order and the unpermitted work that had occurred at 10 Bassett Road associated with the permitted work for construction of a retaining wall and swimming pool. The work did all occur upland of the silt fence and the approved limit of work. So there was no activity to the west of the green line shown on the plan in front of you. The work that varied from what was approved involved the change from a timber retaining wall to a concrete block wall. The wall that ran along the 50-foot buffer was approved, and the wall was built substantially in the location that it was approved, just at with a different material. And then the returns that extend to the east along the northerly and southerly property lines were added. What we're proposing is to cut the wall along the northerly property line such that we would terrace it back so that it would not have as high of an exposed face, and take the top half of the wall off and then rebuild it, step back 4 feet, create a terrace and a planting area. Again, all of the wall though would be outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. And then of course, all of the areas, all work had stopped at the site since the issuance of the enforcement order, and debris that is on the site behind the walls would all be removed. There would be some fill added on the downhill side of the wall within the previously approved limit of work, such that the walls would not exceed 30 inches in height. And we've prepared a existing condition site plan and shown the spot elevations on there for you to see that the changes, the scope of the changes that would be involved there, and then specified what would be the top of the wall and the bottom of wall, so that there would be no further confusion. There was also some areas at the beginning of the driveway that had been, the owner had, I think, tried to do a little bit of restoration work from construction activity where the trucks coming in sort of cut the corner, if you will, into the driveway, and he just tried to sort of fix those up. And we would cover those with a conservation mix and not a maintained lawn type mix in that area. That boundary there also had not been flagged as part of this project. That was a reference to scaled from other previous filings, again, because there was no work actually proposed in that area. So I don't believe there was any, if you were to see that, it's I think pretty minor in scope, and again was something that was just sort of done to try to keep the vehicles further away from the wetland and into the driveway. Lindsay Congleton of Atlantic Landscape is also here to address the commission and any questions that you may have. We've shown the areas, again, not that different from what was originally approved in terms of, a pool and lawn and walls, and then a meadow tall grass area below the walls. I understand there's concern from the commission as a result of the change in materials and the extension of walls having occurred prior to coming to the commission. But again, Lindsay could explain that further if you would like. It was really I think a bit of a misunderstanding in terms of that the work was further away from the wetland than what was approved, and that the material change from a timber wall to a concrete block was essentially didn't particularly make a difference. But again, that's why we're here before you, and happy to address questions or concerns that you may have.
Thank you, Art. I know I would appreciate some explanation on kind of how this project got so far off from what was actually permitted. The photos that we were sent, especially with the debris piled behind the wall, is pretty concerning to me. So I don't know, Lindsay, if you can speak to what happened on that site.
Sure. First off, I want to apologize for the work occurring without going to you guys first. To Arthur's point, I made the assumption that, we're working further outside of the resource area, and I totally should have gone to you guys, and I apologize for not doing so. The change of material, the client had requested to switch from pressure treated wood to concrete block, which, so it'd be more long lasting. So I just assumed wrongfully that it was already approved as a wall, and I was just doing a different type of material. As far as the debris is concerned behind, we were fully intending to remove all of the debris, but we got stopped mid-process. Once we received the enforcement order, we just stopped work entirely. But of course, we were fully planning on cleaning up all debris and hauling it out there before backfilling. And we actually still need to put some gravel behind and drainage behind the retaining walls anyway. But again, I'm very sorry that this happened, and it won't happen again.
Thank you for coming in. I don't know if commissioners have any questions or comments for either Art or Lindsay at this point. Seth?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the previously approved retaining wall, that only extended north through south on the site. It didn't extend east and west on the northern and southerly property boundaries. Is that correct?
Yeah, it extended further away from the resource area. Yeah. So.
But it was just supposed to look like a line, not like a U shape originally, right?
Right. I don't think we, and Art can speak to this. I don't know if we had any. Did we have returns on the wall? I think we had. No.
So thank you. If I may, through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Engelberg. Yeah, there was not the returns. It was a straight north-south wall, if you will.
Thank you. And in that case, I'm not really comfortable with the return staying in place. I think the idea for terracing is creative, but I would prefer to see that section of the walls just removed and then revegetated using a native material. I think that much better suits the resource area, provides better drainage, better stormwater flow, rather than that U-shaped return system.
Thank you, Seth. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. I would have to agree with Seth that, beyond, I guess, the material switch with that wall already in place, I think it should be similar in footprint to what was originally permitted versus kind of decisions that were maybe made on the ground without permitting. Art, do you have a comment?
Sure. Do you want to go through the commission, or would you like me to respond now?
You can respond now if you would like.
So I guess I would say that, I think that if we were to have come to the commission with that layout and the walls and that configuration, they very likely would have been approved outside of the 50-foot buffer zone, moving away from a resource area, not even facing the resource area. The returns on the walls don't point, if you will, towards the wetland resource area. The other wall that was approved does. So I respectfully fail to see how the protected interests are adversely impacted or affected as a result of retaining soil within the buffer zone along those sides. I understand the commission not being pleased with the way that it happened, but if we stick to the protected interests as a result of the work and within the buffer zone, again, it's not any different than I think many other projects, or if we were to look at it in terms of how drainage characteristics in the area work, or head back towards the wetland, we will be putting, as I wrote in the filing, some weep holes in the wall so that, and gravel behind it so that, natural recharge could still occur to the resource area. I don't think at a distance greater than 50 feet, when you still are going to essentially have a full 25-foot undisturbed buffer zone, plus another 25-foot buffer zone that is pretty much undisturbed in terms of being a meadow and tall grasses. All of your precipitation and runoff in that entire area is going to serve to recharge that wetland resource area. And so I guess my point, and not to in any way be argumentative, is just that the pieces of the walls that are there, I don't think are going to have a negative impact on any of the protected interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. I worry about altered drainage to neighboring properties as well, with the proximity to the property lines that those walls are at. I mean, I don't know. This is a very unfortunate situation that took place here. Linda?
Just to be clear in my own head, Art, what you just said is that these walls have moved further away from where they need to be. And you're going to pull these walls back from the neighboring properties so they are not on top of the neighboring properties that might cause a drainage issue?
Through you, Madam Chair, if I may. Not exactly. The walls as constructed along the property line would remain, except for the wall along the northerly property line due to its height. The top half of that wall would be removed, and it would be brought back approximately 4 feet so that you would have two walls terraced instead of one, 5-foot wall. You would have 2.5-foot walls that could then have some planting in between them. And I think that in terms of stormwater runoff and drainage, the walls actually help to keep the water from the site from then flowing directly down onto those abutting properties. And if those walls were to be removed, I think the drainage characteristics would be more to have the natural flow, because where the house is several feet higher, the water and the surface flow would flow to each end of that wall and then likely concentrate, I think, to head over to the abutting properties instead of having a more level area without such a slope that water would run off. And again, Lindsay may be able to also speak to that if needed.
Thank you, Art. Lindsay, would you like to speak to that aspect of the design?
Yeah, I mean, I think having without those walls, the water would drain into the neighbor's property. I think that by having the walls there, it'll help us retain our water on our property. So I think that's essentially what Art just said. But
thank you. Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hear Art's points, and I looked at the plan again. And I do tend to agree, but I'm wondering if there actually can be some additional drainage or additional plantings on the backside of those walls, because I do agree that those walls are going to hold the water and not have a runoff towards the resource area, but it's going to pool there at the corners of that lot, and it's going to cause potential issues. So I think that would be beneficial for the property owner, first of all, but it'd also be beneficial to making sure we don't have pooling situations and more intense flooding in a serious storm event.
Thank you, Seth. Any other comments, questions from commissioners? Looks like not at this point. So I'll open it up and see if there's any public comment on this one. Like not at this point. I know when the wall originally went in, we had, various concerns from neighbors. It doesn't look like we have any comments tonight. So, Jeff, do we have everything we would need to issue an amended order in this case?
Yeah, unless there's any like outstanding questions or issues that you guys have. They've met all of the technical requirements.
Okay. So, yep, Jeff.
Sorry, if it is helpful, I did dig out the last plan of record from the NOI, if people wanted to see it. Sorry, I meant to say that earlier, to compare it to the new proposal so they could see the extent of the originally permitted walls, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
All right, just give me 2 seconds and I'll share that here. All right, does everyone see that?
Yes.
So yeah, so there's the original wall running on the northern end to that area there. Then the southern wall is down along that way too.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. Thank you, Jeff.
No problem. So one nice thing about being on Zoom and sitting in the computer, you can find old stuff pretty quick.
Yes. Art, I see your hand going up.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that we could pretty easily provide a slightly revised plan that incorporates some drainage, surface drainage, collection points in each of those 2 corners and put them into some subsurface infiltration. And that would then, I think, naturally go to the gravel and then to the weep holes, so we don't create an actual surcharge. And, I think that would probably go to address the questions that we heard, and I think actually make for a better, better design. And if it was amenable to the commission, I think it's a very small change that you could just condition that we provide that.
Okay. Thank you, Art. So commissioners, are we feeling ready to issue an amended order, or do we want more information?
I'm all right.
Okay. Seth?
Yeah, I feel ready to issue. I'm not thrilled about what happened on site, and I do think the addition of the drainage plan is needed, but apart from my personal feelings, I don't see how the plan as submitted it is not meeting the standards of the resource areas that we're trying to protect. So
Thank you, Seth. I just had one more question because of the plans we are seeing. Jeff, in our order, it specified native planting right below the 50. Okay, because when it says just meadow tall grasses, I get nervous that we're going to see like a field of miscanthus or something like that. So want to make sure that was called out. All right, so at this point, does somebody want to make the motion to issue the amended order?
I'll make that motion with the drainage plan, as Seth had said.
Yes, Jeff was giving me one moment.
So I'm just trying to type quickly to get this in. So let me just put it up really quickly. So just to kind of memorialize your guys' comments there. We had that condition 24 that we just added, that the applicant shall provide a drainage plan for staff approval, which we just talked about. And then 25 for Ashley's, all plantings within the 50-foot setback are to be native plantings. Native species, sorry.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Seth?
just one question related to the small area of the end of the driveway that was referenced. So was that work done in a wetland or wetland buffer without a permit, or is that we're not sure about? And if there's going to be a restoration, do we need a waiver for that piece of the proposal?
It looks like Art has an answer to that, or part of it anyway.
Sure. I mean, the extent of what was there was sort of homeowner and wheelbarrow to try to, put some topsoil. I don't know if we had put photos in there. I think you had some from the neighbor. I mean, it's really very minor in scope. It was just that there was, it was raw soil, if you will. But I think that same thing, if you wanted to condition the seed mix to go in there, you would do more. I think it would be more disturbance to try to change anything there. And ultimately what was done is to create, by putting, I think they put like some little rocks along there cobbles to try to keep people from cutting the corner, which keeps them away from the wetland. So I really think it just needs to be seeded. And again, it wasn't like a flagged wetland at the start of this project where it was very clear, exactly where that boundary was.
Jeff, and then I'll go back to you, Seth.
So I think that I might recommend, just to kind of memorialize that, another condition 26 that just simply says the disturbed area at the start of the driveway shall be seeded with native species. Because I would tend to agree with Art's assessment. It didn't look like there was clearly disturbance, and it's clearly in the 100-foot buffer zone. I mean, the wetlands, you can see it from where it was. But I tend to agree that it wasn't trying to fill in a resource area or do anything. I think his assessment's probably pretty close to what happened. It's not even that much material, but it was a disturbance that wasn't included in the original permit. So we're just trying to pick everything up from our site inspection.
Thank you, Jeff. Seth?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Jeff. And I don't have any issue with the area being reseeded. I was just trying to figure out, as long as it's done with the native species, I'm just trying to figure out what that wetland setbacks are. Like if we're 100 feet away or 75 feet away, it's no issue. But if it's 25 feet or less, we should apply a waiver for procedural use. So that's kind of just trying to tick that box there. I don't have an issue with the work happening though.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate how thorough you always are.
It certainly was in the 25, Madam Chair.
Okay. So Jeff, can we add that waiver condition or the waiver?
For no adverse effects, I think.
Sorry, I'm just thinking, I actually think instead of granting a waiver under the amended order and having that memorialized through there, I think it may actually make more sense to order that area restored with native species through the enforcement order. I just don't want to get 2 years down the road, have a waiver that's floating out there. Because sometimes those things come back. So I think that would make more sense to me.
Okay, so then this applicant will essentially come back to rectify that enforcement?
No, so I think what you would end up doing is you would issue the amended order of conditions that we amended, and then someone would make a subsequent motion to say the area into the driveway is to be restored, with native species through the existing enforcement action. It's still outstanding, right? It still exists. That's why we're here. But that way you're ordering that work done specifically to there, and you're not having to grant a waiver to your regulations because you're ordering it done through the enforcement.
Thank you, Jeff. Seth?
That sounds fine. Procedurally, that makes a lot of sense. So I'll make a motion to issue the amended order as amended and to issue the enforcement order requiring them to reseed that area by the driveway with the native species.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
So Seth's making a motion, Linda seconding it. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Williams,
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you for working through this one, everybody.
Thank you.
And-
Sorry again. Won't happen again. promise.
Thank you for coming in. Lessons learned, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so that moves us on in the public meeting to requests for determination of applicability. We have Fifth Door LLC at 10 Medui Creek, represented by Ben Shampoo.
Everybody.
Hi, Ben.
Okay, let me
All
see.
right, I'm trying to get the plan up for you, Ben, as quickly as I can here.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. And you know, I noticed that there's an aerial view of the property that I had sent in to your office that that didn't make it into the packet. So I sent it to you again via email.
We'll get them both.
Okay.
All right, let's rotate here.
I just think it's kind of important to just show how this is laid out, especially the access road. Yeah, so there's that, that's part of what I sent in. There was one.
Oops. Here, let me,
I just sent it to your email like about 15 minutes ago and I noticed that wasn't on there.
perfect. Well, why don't you get started, Ben, and I will,
Okay.
I will get it up.
Sure. Okay, so there it is. Yep, that's it. Okay, so there's the aerial of the property. And the proposal is to install a raised spa at the plan view just to the right of the end of the swimming pool. And also a little bit closer up toward the house, a fire pit, both of which are beyond the 50, both of which are past the 50-foot buffer, closer to the 100-foot buffer. The access for the project, yeah, so the 50-foot buffer in this plan runs, if you could zoom in on that a little bit, Jeff, it's a little bit hard to see, but.
Second, my screen is not helping me at the moment.
So the 50-foot buffer runs along that existing hedge line. And the access road that we would like to use runs just outside the hedge between the 25 and the 50 for a portion of about 140 feet. And the reason I don't want to go into the property is because it's finished lawn and I'd have to go through a hedge of existing natives that are nicely established now. The hedge of natives follows the 50-foot buffer to serve as the pool fence and also for runoff purposes. So that consists of, if I remember, viburnum, sweet pepper bush, high bush blueberry, maybe another species. I think maybe just those three. So in any case, the 2-track road on this aerial here is basically what we're using, the one that shows closer to the hedge. And then we're going to, yeah, right through there. And then about right where Jeff's cursor is, no, back a little bit, right back there. That's where we enter the pool area for access to do the work. And that, I guess, in a nutshell is it. I can read you the description. The description is build a raised 8x8 spa and a 30-foot round fire pit in an existing lawn area at the eastern end of an existing swimming pool. The access to the work area travels along an existing dirt road, enters the property outside the 50-foot buffer. Access then crosses and travels approximately 140 feet inside the 50 to the work area along an existing traveled 2-track road. And then the work is really just in that red bubble there. So that's the project.
Thank you, Ben. Jeff?
All right, I just want to clarify something really quickly. I know Ben probably just, it's the normal slip. It's not a 30-foot fire pit, it's a 30-inch fire pit.
Oh yeah, 30-inch fire pit. Yes, thank you, Jeff.
Don't want anyone to get nervous that it was going to be like a bonfire. That'd be crazy.
So are there any questions or comments from commissioners on this one? Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when you turn back north off of that 2-track road, there is a small area of the hedge that it looks like you'll have to go through. So are those plants going to have to be, removed or cut down? And if so, will they be revegetated after the work, or will it stay as an opening there?
No, we're going to put there's a wire pool fence in vegetation. So the vegetation will be replaced with light kind vegetation. We actually healed some plants in from another part of the property that will probably use the same thing. So either new stuff, either new plants or the same viburnum, high bush blueberry, and clethra.
Thank you. I guess I'm curious why this one is an RDA and not a notice, just given that you do have to go inside the 50 to get access, and it's kind of right on the line. So I guess I'm just curious about that.
So the access, there's really no permanent disturbance, or there's no structure of any kind. And because it traveled along like an existing 2-track road, I think that gets used for, I don't know, mosquito spraying, or I don't know, access or something, but it's always been there. And it's there is a previous order, I think, that allows for field mowing in there. There was a long time ago, there was some boulders installed on the 25-foot. I don't know if you remember that, Jeff. It was something that happened down there, but I think in a previous order, there's allowable periodic field mowing in that area. But anyway, the reason that I didn't feel that a notice was necessary, and Jeff didn't either when we spoke, was that there was no permanent disturbance. So it's really just access that's going to grow back to the existing conditions with no structures, no permanent alteration of anything between the 25 and the 50.
Okay. Thank you for just going over that. Jeff?
Yeah, so if I may, I mean, when Ben first sent it in, I think if that 2-track road didn't exist and it hadn't been permitted before in existence, we would have had a notice for sure. But I think the fact that it was there and we were able to recover the permit history on that and Ben gave an admirable remembrance of what that was, probably would have asked for a notice for the project. But that's kind of where we got to an RDA from.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Jeff, what would staff recommend for this one?
We would recommend a -3 to allow for the work without the notice of intent.
Okay, thank you. Would somebody like to make the motion to issue the -3 allowing for the work?
I'll make that motion.
I think Mark beat you with his hand unless he has a question. Mark, you were making the motion?
I'll second.
All right, so Linda has the second by roll vote. Beal?
Aye.
Engelborg?
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Williams?
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Ben.
All right, thank you all. Have a nice Thanksgiving.
You too.
So that moves us on to Turner trustee at 196 Hummock Pond Road, represented by David Haynes.
Good evening. Yeah, David and Regina Haynes, but I'm here for her, and I'm not wearing a dress. I know Ian would ask me that. So what this is a request for determination to verify a wetland boundary on this property. There it is. There's two wetland systems, an isolated wetland in the front, which consists of a wet meadow and a shrub swamp. And then to the rear of the property, there's a larger bordering vegetated wetland that comes onto the property slightly. So we're just asking, there's no work is proposed. We're just asking for a verification of the wetland boundary as flagged in the field. As you can see, the flags 1 through 14 are the isolated wetland in the front part of in the front part of the property. And half of that is a wet meadow and half of that is a shrub swamp. And then the system along the back with wetland flags 51 to 53 is part of a larger system that's off-site. So we're just basically asking for that delineation to be approved.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Jeff, has staff been out to check this site? Maeve.
Sorry about that. Yes, we have been out and reviewed the plants and soils there and would agree with the delineation as shown on the plan.
Okay, so is Seth, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, and I'll defer to Jeff if he's been on site, but I guess I'm a little, maybe not shocked, but a little, it's interesting that those two wetlands are so close to each other in distance, but there's not a hydraulic connection. So has that been looked at? Because you're saying it's isolated vegetated wetland, but I would assume there's a hydrologic connection there.
There, if I may, through the chair, I did look. Actually, the GIS maps do show some sort of a hydrologic connection, but there's no evidence of it in the field. There is a slight ridge that goes through there, and it comes up and does not. They do not connect that I found anyway. And you can walk around that north side or that south side, actually. Excuse me.
Thank you, David. Jeff?
So if I may too, I think that this is one of those interesting cases where, I mean, they're close and, you know, they're really about 100 feet apart, give or take. And when we look through there, I mean, I poked around the soils there, kind of between wetland flag, kind of 10 and 11. Oh, you can't see, sorry. Let me put the plan back up. So when we are out doing our evaluation, I looked kind of in here and just did a quick transect between where I was kind of approximating the line and then kind of coming off 11 towards it. And I think there's definitely a connection there, but I just don't think it gets within 18 inches of the surface on a consistent enough basis to have that hydric soil connection between the two. But I have zero doubt that subsurface, probably beneath there, that groundwater definitely interchanges between the two, but just couldn't find the soils in between the two to make it work. But it wasn't for lack of looking. I mean, I think I probably did about 6 or 8 auger holes through there just to see if I could find it, but no such luck.
Thank you, Jeff. Seth, do you have a follow-up?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you clarifying there and being thorough. And I'm satisfied with what you did in the field.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? So Jeff, is this a -2A conforming the wetland boundary? Darn it. What is it?
Positive 2A.
Positive 2A.
Positive 2A confirming the resource area boundaries. You had the right number.
The right number.
The wrong prefix.
Mixed it
Trust
up.
me, it's taken me like 20 years to get the positive and negatives correct on this. And I still will botch up when we get to one that's not a +2 or a -3, and I will mess it up. So.
Great. Well, would somebody like to make the motion to issue a positive 2A confirming the resource area boundaries?
Move, Madam Chair.
I think Seth got you with his hand, so I'll give you the second, Linda.
Yep.
So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, David.
Thank you all very much and have a nice holiday.
You
You
as
too.
So that moves us on to England trustees at 55 Nobodere Avenue, represented by Paul Santos.
Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors, representing the property owner, Robert L. Angland and Joan Walsh Angland, who are trustees of 55 Nobodere Avenue Nominee Trust. This is a request for determination of applicability to confirm the wetland or natural resource areas on the subject property. Property is located at 55 Nobodere Avenue. It's an approximately 50,000 square foot residential lot that has on it a one-story dwelling, a one-story cottage, shed, well, and an existing septic system. The resource areas that are on the property, starting from the upland and working towards the ocean, would be top of coastal bank, coastal dune, beach, and then the ocean itself. The area from the top of the coastal bank towards the ocean is mapped by Natural Heritage as priority habitat and estimated habitat within that area below the coastal bank. The area that would require the particular setbacks, both the 25, 50, and also the 100-foot buffer, would be the top of the coastal bank. That coastal bank we had located historically on this property back in 2006. We relocated it again in April of this year for this filing, and we had found that there'd been no change to the top of that bank whatsoever. While the shoreline does change in this area, this is it is a stable bank in our opinion, and we've opined in that within the body of the request. Essentially, the bank is stable. You have that coastal dune, and then you go into the coastal beach. As such, we have asked to confirm both the wetlands, but then also to confirm that we are moving forward, would be dealing with a 25-foot no disturb, a 50-foot no build, and then the 100-foot buffer zone on the subject property. No work is proposed at this time, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners on this one? And if not, Jeff, has staff been out to the site to review?
Yes, I was out on the site earlier this week and would agree. And would just kind of confirm what Paul said, that I actually was kind of pleasantly surprised to see how well vegetated and stable that coastal bank was, and actually really happy to also see that currently it's pretty much native vegetation up to that back deck. You can kind of see the paths on the trail, and the rest of it's just all filled in with regular brush. So it's kind of nice.
Awesome.
So that being said, I guess our recommendation again would be a positive 2A.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion to issue the positive 2A? Mark made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
And that moves us on to minor modifications. We have Net Zero LLC at 99 Low Beach Road. I don't have anybody listed.
Oh, sorry. This is Mark Ritz.
Okay. Mark Ritz from Site Design, I guess, is on this one. Mark, are you with us?
He's here.
Yeah, I can see him. Or not him physically, but his little box with his name.
Don't you just love Zoom?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
know he was traveling back off the island today, so he may.
be in that hole on the boat.
Well, he was on a plane. He was going to be traveling back to where he lives after like 6 p.m. So he may be there. I can try to run through it if it's helpful for people.
Probably will be. You know the property. I know the property.
And I'll put it up on the screen. So what they are looking to do is essentially, they're doing kind of a property development, and they are reconfiguring the site a little bit and moving further away from the wetland areas sorry, I'm just trying to get to the right place here. No, I can't find my buttons. Man, sorry, I just had a little computer meltdown there for myself where I couldn't just find what I was looking to do. So what they've proposed is they're relocating some of the buildings over here, and they've had the solar panel array and the tennis courts get their final design, and they are just within the 100 slightly, and they've moved further away on the opposite side of the driveway. And then they've also increased the setback, and they've removed the rest of the structures and things from being within the 100. And now it's simply just some grading within the 100. Oh, this may be Mark again. So.
Hey, this is Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Sorry. Mark, do you want to explain your minor mod? I was just making hash of it.
Yes, my apologies. For whatever reason, it said I couldn't turn on the video or audio on Zoom because the administrator disabled it. So my apologies. This is Mark Ritz from Site Design representing the applicant. Just to go over this one quickly, the previous approval allowed for the construction of a driveway coming in between the existing orange silt fence, dashed orange silt fence lines. The driveway then took a right turn out between the 50 and 100-foot buffer, and it continued. Just for reference, north is to the right on this plan. So the driveway took a turn to the right and continued south, and there was a large driveway parking area there and garage, which were located partially inside the 100-foot buffer. We've moved all of that structure out of that area, and we're requesting the authorization to construct a tennis court on the west side of that driveway, just barely inside the 100-foot buffer, and also a solar array right next to that tennis court, also with just a small portion of it inside of the 100-foot buffer on the other side of the driveway. That's pretty much the extent of the modifications we're requesting.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners about this one? Looks like no. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to issue the minor mod?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there a motion to issue the minor mod?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal. Engelborg.
Aye.
Arisman, I. Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Mark.
I have to.
Thank you, and I apologize for the confusion.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
I have to recuse from 45. It's one of my old clients.
All right, so then we don't have a quorum for 45 Holbert then.
Well, do you have a quorum? I was going to ask you about that. Depending on what board I'm on, it's always different.
No,
If you
we
have
need
a quorum of those present, does that work on the Concom? It does on the HDC.
we need 4 members to sit.
Okay, I just, I'm not comfortable with it because I was the one who got the building out of there.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, Jeff.
Well, the main thrust of this minor modification is.
Yeah, I don't know if we can even hear it because we don't have a quorum. I think we'll need to
It's all for landscaping, so it's no problem for this to go on for 2 weeks. There's not going to be any landscaping going on for a while.
All right.
Yeah, so if it's all right, we'll just continue to 12-2, and my apologies, Jeff. I wasn't aware we were going to have so many absences tonight. So
no trouble at all.
Yeah, thank you for being understanding, Jeff.
All right.
All right, so that moves us on to Caesar at 14 Moores End Lane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm before you tonight to request small adjustment to the approved application at 14 Moores End, which involves a bit of about a 1 foot bump out onto an existing enclosed porch, and then converting a deck that had been proposed to be enclosed underneath, but now to also make the second story part of that also interior space. And we're located approximately, I think, 70 something feet from the wetland resource area within existing lawn areas. But we would like to be sure that the commission has reviewed and approved the proposal before any work is done there.
Thank you, Art. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners about this one? Looks like no. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to issue a minor mod?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Is there a motion to issue the minor mod?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Mark. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. Thank you, Art.
Thank you.
And that moves us on to certificates of compliance. We have Cunningham at 105 Eel Point Road.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have to recuse on this one and the next one, so we're gonna have a quorum issue with these.
Okay. So I guess we'll continue the Cunningham certificates to our December 2nd meeting. And we will pick up with the certificates at Royal Mile LLC at 14 Celtic Drive.
All right, well, I'll just take over again there. This was for, if you guys remember, a project we permitted not too long ago. That was for the creation of a parking area and the construction of a garage apartment area as well, well outside of the 50-foot setback. That project has been completed and we found that site to be in compliance, and we recommend the issuance of the certificate of compliance.
Okay, if there are not any questions, would somebody like to make the motion to issue the certificate of compliance?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Nantucket Realty Incorporated, 39 through 41 Starbuck Road.
This one was really easy. The certificate, the orders expired and they never did the work, so they're just looking to invalidate the order.
Okay.
So moved.
All right, it looks like seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that also carries unanimously. Moves us on to Safe Harbor Nominee Trust at 254 and 256 Pulpus Road.
So this one was for the upgrade of an existing septic system. It has been completed and signed off by the Board of Health, and the site is in compliance, and we're recommending that it could be issued.
If there are no questions, is there a motion to issue the cert?
So moved.
I think Seth got you with his hand, so I'll give Seth the motion and you the second, Linda.
Second.
By roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously and moves us on to Raymond at 5 Cornish Street, SE 482471.
Sure. So the first one here, 2471, was for the construction of, the removal of an existing shed and then the construction of a new shed in a slightly different location. That work's been completed and we found it to be in compliance and would recommend it could be issued.
All right, if there are no questions, is there a motion? Oh, Mark, do you have a question?
No, so moved.
Mark's making the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Linda. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
Carries unanimously and moves us on to Raymond, 5 Cornish Street, SE 48 3335.
So this was for the kind of the raising of the house, not RAZ, but RAI, to lift it and get out of the flood elevation, add some new stairs and redo the driveway. Again, we found the grades to be consistent with the pre-permitted condition, and the house was constructed in compliance, and we recommend it could be issued.
Thank you, Jeff. Again, if there are no questions, is there a motion to issue the cert?
So moved.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Mark. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to O'Connor and Farrell at 86 Hummock Pond Road, SE 48 1975, and NAN 079.
Yes, so this one's a little bit easier. So this one was actually superseded later by the SE 48 2966. They were both essentially for the construction of the house that's there. But this one had expired. I think they went through a different one. This site was kind of mired in permitting and appeals for a long time. Not to bore everyone with a history on it, but had some problems getting through permitting. Finally ended up getting permits. Permits expired, and then they got a new permit for the same work. So we're recommending that it could be issued because it was done in compliance with the permit for what was permitted. So we're recommending that, honestly, that both of them could be issued certificates of compliance, but for the one that's open, it's in compliance and could be issued. So, sorry, a very convoluted explanation, but that.
What do you want for a motion, Jeff?
A motion to issue the certificate of compliance.
Second.
Also moved.
Right.
Second.
All right. So Mark made the motion. Linda got the second. By roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
So then we have O'Connor and Farrell, 86 Hummock Pond Road, SE 48 2966.
Same recommendation.
Okay.
I believe he said that superseded the other one. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Linda made the
I'll
motion.
make that motion.
Second. Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Dolphin Court LLC at 3 Dolphin Court.
So this was for the construction of a structure within the flood zone. And we found the site to be in compliance with the original permit and we recommend it could be issued.
All right, is there a motion to issue the cert?
So moved.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Mark. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. It moves us on to Harborside Partners LLC at 26 Easton Street.
This one's really easy. The work was never started and the permit's expired, so they're just looking to invalidate the order of conditions.
Awesome. Is there a motion to invalidate the order?
So moved.
So I'll give Linda the motion. Mark, do you want the second?
Second.
All right. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right. That also carries unanimously. And that moves us on to orders of conditions. So Jeff sent these out to us earlier today. And we will begin with NISDA at 55 Walwinet Road.
Sure. So not to be confused with like the other like 30 NISDA projects I feel like we heard tonight. This was the one at 55 Walwinet. That was the work on the existing structure and the two new structures, one of which was not within jurisdiction. On the site, a little patio and then some vegetation management that Brian described. I'd included a photo monitoring thing, but didn't have anything else on this one.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions or amendments to the order? And if not, is there a motion to issue the order as drafted?
I'll make a motion to issue the order as drafted.
All right, motion made by Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Gilbert at 16 D Street.
So I sent this from some previous discussions that we had, and obviously there was a little bit more discussion tonight that may change this. But I had included our kind of new fertilizer condition for soil testing and all of those, and then exterior lighting one. But I'm happy to take any kind of discussion or suggestions or thoughts on this. I know this isn't the most straightforward project ever. So, but when I went back and through other minutes, I know I had sent this out before, so I didn't want to all of a sudden not send it and deal with it. So, but I know there may be some mixed thoughts on this.
Jeff, I know I just see a typo and under additional findings where it says slat marsh instead of salt marsh.
Slat marsh is not a protected area.
But it looked like Linda had her hand up.
It's more of a general question, but it's brought up in this one. This fertilizer thing is getting out of control, whether it's Hither Creek or whether it's in the harbor. And I know Seth has comments about this, but I didn't know if there's anything when we start getting into drafting things that we could do something more intense about this fertilizer issue. I know we passed it at town meeting some years ago. If you see green grass on the harbors, you got fertilizer. And everybody's getting so concerned because of the scallops and everything else and the runoff. And I don't know if there's enough people on the island to do enforcement on this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you raise a good point, Linda. I think there aren't enough eyeballs for all the properties on Nantucket. I know Jeff and his team, like once landscaper season starts up, they're like actively looking for people fertilizing inappropriately. We have adopted the best management practices under our regulations that require, soil tests before fertilizing, but there's definitely room for improvement, I think. So you are right on there.
Can we find them? I mean, I know there's probably prescribed fines, but I think we need to really revisit this whole thing, especially given the slime that they're coming up with on the scallops this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jeff can speak better to what happens when somebody gets caught as far as fining is concerned. Jeff, can you speak to that at all?
Sure. So I think in this case too, especially when we're in like a known jurisdictional area for the Concom, if I were the enforcement agent, I would probably write a ticket underneath the fertilizer, the active fertilizer regulation. And I don't remember the number. It's a Board of Health regulation, but I'm authorized as an agent to issue. I would probably actually write the max like $300 ticket underneath that. And I would probably also write a $50 ticket under the Wetlands Protection Act, which is kind of our max for that as well. If we found a violation there, just given the proximity to where it's at. With an open order of conditions, it's actually kind of nice because I have the right to be there. And by adopting the best management practices into our regulations, I don't even get that snafu where I'm going to investigate the wetlands permit and Wetlands Act, and then I'm enforcing on something else just because I happen into it. Because we've adopted it, I actually have the ability to do both. So it's kind of nice that way. That being said, I will not be the first to admit that we have a long way to go with fertilizer management and the way the state has unfortunately set up fertilizer management in the Commonwealth. If we want to make any change to our local Board of Health regulation that we adopted pre like 2012, fortunately, or else we would be dead in the water, we require it first to go to the Regional Planning Authority to be adopted, and then it can go back to the Board of Health, even though it's their regulation. So it's a bit of a process. And if it gets too far, the Department of Agriculture also loves to throw their weight around and tell you that it's not valid and it's unenforceable if they feel like it's impinging upon their territory. It's kind of weird. It's one of the few. It's a little like fisheries in that sense, where they're very protective of it when they want to be and don't really care when they don't want to. So, but I don't know. I'm at least hopeful. I know there's a home rule petition in for town meeting this year. I'm at least hopeful that will at least spark a good productive conversation on how we can improve fertilizer management, if that isn't going to get carried the whole way forward and kind of reinvigorate that. But I will save my soapboxy fertilizer speech for a time when it's not 10 till 8 at night after a 3-hour Concom meeting.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about it, and you just brought it up on this particular order.
No,
So when I went through the minutes on this, there had been some concern about it with its proximity, Linda. So that's why I included our condition we've been doing on fertilizer.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, a very valid concern you have, Linda. Mark?
Yes, Jeff, remind me, we went all around the barn with this application, including a site visit by a lot of us. They start out with a covered porch. Now it's not covered. Is that right?
I believe it is mostly uncovered at this point. It's over the existing deck. If you want, I can bring the plan back up if that would be helpful.
I'm looking at it right now myself, but they're building it within the 25.
One second. Let me try to fetch it just so we can all see it.
Revised plan, they moved it back a little bit, shortened the deck by Fraz. It looks like anyway.
I know the plan isn't the easiest to follow.
But they removed the reference to a roof was in the first plan. Now they don't reference the roof. But we're still permitting a deck in the 25-foot zone.
The deck was already there and they were going to put a roof above it and kind of enclose it.
Oh, okay, that helps me a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, let me see if I can zoom in for you, Mark, on the deck. It's just tough to see on the plan. So if you see there's this little faint gray line, you can kind of see where my crosshair goes there, going up. So that deck, that deck comes up, and then it's actually moving closer to the building from where it runs now. So it's going up and over now, and then it returns back to the same point here. So they're actually moving. I don't remember, Don said it today. I believe they're moving about half of a foot closer to the structure.
It showed the hash marks on the existing house, and deck on the west side.
Yeah,
No,
it's just,
no hash marks on the deck that's in the 25 zone.
correct. So the deck, the existing deck, most of the time on plans doesn't get hatched where you see like the slash marks. Decks
Okay.
are normally shown. It would be a lot nicer if they would have done it in a color, but the deck is essentially staying in the same location.
Okay.
And they did withdraw the I don't say withdraw, but they took out the they're just redoing it. They had proposed originally to cover a portion of it, and they took that off of the proposal.
And we made some noise about that, as I recall.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm ready. Thank you.
Great. So any other kind of questions or amendments to this one?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, with the little like typo
Yeah.
correction.
Typo correction.
So Linda made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Seth has the second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. We did not close.
We had X Sandy, maybe?
We did close X Sandy, but I had not drafted an order for X Sandy.
Okay.
And we didn't close Woodbury, excuse me. So that, yeah, Woodbine. That moves us on to Nantucket Island's land bank at 19 Wallwinnet.
Look, before we get there, on Axe Sandy, we closed that application.
Mhm.
Were people looking for a positive order on that application?
I believe there's a caveat there somewhere, but I think so.
Yeah.
I thought so. I know there was a question about structural area that seemed to get satisfied with the knowledge that it was going in where there was existing structural area for some of that new stuff. I just making sure. I'm happy to draft one up, so I'll get that ready for 12-2.
Yeah, no, I think that's the way to go.
All right. All right. 19 Wallwinnet.
Yes. So 19 Wallwinnet, Nantucket Island's land bank.
So we've already kind of talked about this one tonight. This is the one that goes with the amended order for 23 and 25. So we did the conditions where we had our fill condition that we've been putting on. We had the any invasive species material removed from the site shall be properly disposed of at the Nantucket landfill. And then any areas disturbed by the moving of the structure are required to be restored using a native seed mix or native plantings.
Okay.
Yes. And would that be considered as amended because it's different than what we have in front of us?
Amazingly, no.
Okay.
Because we kind of did it. Actually, do it as amended. I don't think it makes a difference, but we might as well, just in case.
Okay. If there are no questions or other additions, would somebody like to issue that order as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Daisy at 14 Plover Lane.
I'm loading. I'll be honest, I didn't really have a lot of conditions for this one. It seemed pretty straightforward. It's like the rarest of the rare applications for us with a house outside of 50, a septic outside of 100, and nothing being proposed or needing waivers in like the 25 or 50. So maybe I was just thrown off by it seemingly was like compliant and straightforward.
Was it Brian's too? He never has these easy ones.
Yes, it was. It was one of Brian's. I should have assumed yes, because I think he did like 90% of them for tonight.
Well, if there are no questions or additions to this one, would somebody like to issue the order as drafted?
So moved.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I. Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Tristram's group at 41 Starbuck Road.
All right, so I messed this one up. I will full-fledged admit it. This one does require waivers, and I did this one last today, like right at 4 p.m. and just trying to get them to you guys. It does require waivers because it's within the 100-foot buffer zone to those two resource areas that are there. So I didn't have any conditions because it was just the straight septic upgrade. But I would request that if we do it as amended, I don't want to try to do it on the fly because it's a lot of words that I'll probably just take from another one. But I would recommend that we grant the waiver to the 100-foot requirement for the septic leach field under the net benefit provision. And I say that because we've never used the no adverse impact, no reasonable alternative because septic leach fields inherently are an impact. And we've always done septic upgrades as a net benefit from the previous condition because you're improving the impact. So that's why I would recommend that and request that you issue it as amended to include that on there.
Thank you, Jeff. Would somebody like to make a motion to issue the order, including a waiver for a net benefit?
So moved.
And it looks like Seth, are you going for the second?
Yep.
All right. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I. Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to extension of orders. We have Grell at 21 Field Avenue.
Yes, so this is one, I know Paul is still on for it, but I'm just going to try to steal his thunder. This was for a project on 21 Field Ave for some work on the property. They've kind of stopped and started a couple times on the project, but the site's currently in compliance. And to explain the expiration dates on this was also a permit that expired during the COVID tolling time, so it's still valid because of the tolling. They're requesting the extensions to complete the project, so they've requested the 3 one-year extensions to complete it. But that is a site that we've had a little bit of a history on, so it's a regular checker for a couple of us in the office, and they've been good since the property was taken by the Grells for maintaining it and keeping it in good order. So. We're recommending that we could issue the extensions.
Thank you, Jeff. If there aren't any questions for Jeff, would somebody like to make the motion to issue the 3 one-year extensions?
So moved.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I. Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously and moves us on to other business. We have approval of minutes from October 28th. Thank you, Terry, as always, for the minutes.
I've got October 7th here.
Sorry, I was a misprint on the original agenda that we fix later.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's what I thought. Okay, I'll make that
We already
motion.
approved October 7th.
That's what I
Terry
thought. We're
keeps us
way
honest.
past that now.
No.
So Linda, did you just make the motion?
I'll make that motion as I was sitting in my car for 2 hours in the parking lot in New Jersey at Kohl's.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, so by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I. Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Moves us on to monitoring reports. I think we had 2 reports in there.
Yep, and like always, if you guys have questions on any of those, feel free to send them in and I'll pass them along to the folks that provided those. But like always, we try to at least get them recognize that they're sending them in because not everybody always sends them in. So.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for those monitoring reports. And that moves us on to committee reports. Crack is not here. But I know they did, because I saw Vince, he presented to some of my students, they did approve the CRP this week.
Yeah, on Tuesday morning, the crack, accepted the CRP, and now it'll be in front of the select board for the first time on December 1st meeting. I think they'll have it in front of them for discussion. I don't know if they're going to end up adopting it that first night or if it's just going to be a discussion and then later. Hopeful that it would show up and they'd say, oh, Crack did a great job. They did what they're supposed to do. Now let's focus on implementation and how we're going to start making progress on that $1.1 billion adventure for coastal resiliency. So let's see where we go.
Thank you, Jeff, for explaining that a little better. CPC?
I was stuck at Don Allen Ford that morning. Maybe Linda can give us an update on what went on.
It was a very short meeting. We did allocate all of the funds. We're now getting a lot more money than we thought we were because of the real estate bonanza. Almost everybody got what they asked for, except for one got a less and one didn't get it. And it was a short meeting this week, just approving stuff, and on we go. And we did file our home rule, our citizens warrant article. We never put CPC in through the selectmen anymore after previous selectmen tried to tinker with it. So we put it in as a citizens warrant article, so it went in.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, thank you.
That's one of the great pieces of like Nantucket politics of like all time. So
yeah,
the fact that CPC does it as a citizen warrant article is kind of amazing. So.
Yeah, so we did it. We've been here 16, 17 years. I forget how long I've been on it. And we didn't do it as a citizens warrant article once. And that was it. Now it's always a citizens warrant article.
Yep, it only takes one time to learn that lesson, I guess.
Yep.
And we do not have NP and EDC here tonight, so that moves us on to commissioners' comments. Are there any commissioners' comments this evening?
Nope. Another well-run meeting, Madam Chairman.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. Looks like Seth had your hand up.
Yeah, as a preamble to this, I say this generally and not in reference to any member of the commission. But I am concerned about potential chronic non-attendance on the board and ways that could possibly be remediated. I know there are provisions within the town's handbook on boards and committees, but just wanted to make that known that as we can see tonight, there is limited attendance and it has affected our operation. So something that needs to be taken seriously.
Just as Madam Chairman, just as a side note that I was on the Charter Commission both times. That provision only applies to appointed. Elected cannot be removed the same way.
So,
but they should, I am, as you, concerned because we ran into this and I'm sitting in the car. If I can sit in the car at Kohl's for 2 hours on my phone, other people can come in on Zoom, and I am concerned about that as well.
yeah, so I know Jeff and I have been having some conversations, so we'll kind of continue to connect with commissioners. And I think the most important thing is if someone's going to be absent, to let Jeff or I know so that we can tell applicants that we're going to be short on numbers. So
I will say just for tonight alone, Maureen did get in touch with me late today that she's having an adverse reaction to a medication that she wasn't sure if she was going to make it or not. And I know Ian was going to attempt. So I know sometimes reality hits, but it is something that we are looking in, and we've done it before. And we're trying to make sure that everyone is in attendance.
And happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
yes, happy Thanksgiving. I have just a couple of comments. One, I just want to make sure we're keeping enforcements on our radar. Jeff, I know you have like a long list, but just so commissioners are getting updated. on like Hollywood Farm, and we have that property out 119 Baxter Road. And I was out like by Clark's Cove recently and saw that house like at the end that's still on stilts. You know, just like what's happening with some of these.
Sure. I have answers to a lot of those. I'll try to put something together for our 12-2 meeting, or at least a little update.
Thank you.
Especially, Madam Chairman, especially that one, our favorite little, I created my own pond out on Pulpus Road.
Yeah.
So there's a little more afoot with that one right now. So I may send to you guys kind of all offline, a little update on what's going on there. It's not as straightforward as it once was.
Oh, yes, I know.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. Mark?
Jeff, do we have an emergency order for a house removal on the South Shore?
Which part of the South Shore?
Well, in the last week, I heard there's an emergency order going to be maybe coming to you still then. So we, as a house is what's poised to go, it's not ready to go over, but it's within 20 or 30 feet, and they lost a bunch.
We haven't issued any emergencies really recently. So
okay, I'll
if you got
follow
an
up.
address, Mark, send it to me and I'll look into it for sure.
Follow up. Yeah, I didn't get the name.
But
where was
sometimes
this
those get to us late.
Where was this, Mark? What property?
South Shore is all I know.
All right, there is one that just came in for a discussion to the building department either yesterday or today when I was in there about an emergency move where it's going over the edge, and it is on the South Shore. I didn't quite catch where, but I think it's probably in the Nantucket area somewhere between there and Hummock Pond.
Thank you for putting that on Jeff's radar, because it'll obviously need to come in front of us.
So just to clarify something too with emergency permits for us, the Concom can issue emergency permits, but only in the case where a different agency has declared it an emergency. So sometimes that's why you see it start with like the building department. So if the building department essentially is going to condemn the structure, or there's another word that they use for it to call it uninhabitable because of it, and can declare it an emergency then, or the Board of Health or Public Works. But the commission itself can't self-declare an emergency and then permit a way to remedy the emergency that they've declared. They need it to be from another governmental agency. So that's why sometimes you see it start with like building or health or the select board or any of those, because we can't issue an emergency without that previous declaration.
Thank you, Jeff. Mark?
Jeff, are you authorized to give Toscana or someone like that to go ahead if it's a true emergency?
Yes.
I would hope so.
So in a true emergency, right, the way it usually works with the town is kind of the group that's primarily like Paul Murphy, Roberto, and I. And it used to be Rob McNeil would involve too, but now it's probably Stephen. When those things come up, if the house is getting really close, we have all, Paul will be like, it's an emergency. And then we all just issue out kind of at the same moment and deal with it. And then I've also said before, I said, if it's really that big of an emergency, I would rather issue it out and have something in place and then have to backpedal a little bit on it than to be caught with someone not trying to fix the emergency and end up with the worst situation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I just have one more comment, and Jeff might be able to clarify this stuff a little more, but I don't believe we'll be going into executive session because I don't think we've gotten enough responses from lawyers at this point. Is that true?
No, it's been kind of slow going, and we also only have 4 of you. So, but we also we haven't been served any paperwork yet. So we're still, and I don't want to say we're in the free and clear, but we're still kind of in the free and clear for time deadlines. So I'm endeavoring to get some. I did have a couple that said they were interested. So I've been trying to get some more through MACC and obviously like the Cape Cod network of conservation agents that I speak to. And I've also asked other attorneys that they've, on island who they've worked with, who may they be able to recommend for something like this too, just to try to get a few more folks. But this is a tricky time of year to track folks down too. So trying.
Thank you, Jeff. And then my kind of follow up to that is I do just want to mention to commissioners, and I'm sorry that we do have such a small board, but it has been requested of me that I meet with a small group of town members. So Libby Gibson, Matt Fee, Ken Bogrand, and I'm forgetting who else was on that short list. Jeff, you were on it.
Vince as well.
And Vince as well, in reference to potential NOIs and planning for coastal resiliency, but starting the conversation with Sconset. And I just wanted to, I guess, inform commissioners that that request has been made. And I know Jeff can explain the background a little bit better than I can.
Sure, if you want me to, I'm happy to. So I think the intent was, we're obviously getting ready to embark into maybe a new application for the Baxter Road area, but also knowing that we're going to start, planning and design on a lot of other processes for other spots of the island related to resiliency. I think the hopes were to sit down with Ashley in her role as chair to say, before we come in with designs and applications, would it be better to come in to have like a pre-application meeting before those even get fully scoped to say, what do we feel is problematic? Because I think what the town is looking to avoid is designing projects that are not permissible, or designing projects that are going to cause issues and problems and not going to move through permitting in a productive manner. And I think what they're trying to hope is kind of set up that process, see what concerns really need to get focused on and addressed. Because I know we got a lot of, between all of us here, some superfluous information on these applications that don't really make that much difference, that sometimes we spend a lot of time on because people provide it and want to talk about it. But to try to provide a better focus on engaging an engineer to design any of these projects and what process we think would work best with getting projects in front of the commission to not waste your time. I mean, that's how I kind of look at it and viewed at it, is none of us want to sit through 8.5 months of permitting on a project, especially, and I will just speak for me when I say this, I don't want to spend 8 months going through a permitting process to just get to a denial. Because I think always there's a way to design projects to get permits if you're willing to compromise and listen and, permit things in a productive manner. And I think that's what that discussion is hopefully trying to do, is set up what that process may be to get in front of you guys without the application, to give you guys a better application that's worth your time. That's what I'm hoping.
Thank you, Jeff. Mark?
Ashley, what's your comfort level with that request of you?
I just wanted to put it out there publicly. I think besides Vince is essentially a similar group to the work group that was happening last fall. And it's just a request for kind of one meeting, a conversation moving forward. So, I'm happy to sit at the table. If commissioners feel uncomfortable with that, I'm happy to listen to those concerns as well.
I think it can only be productive, and I think it's a good idea that that particular group sort of hears each other out.
Thank you. Yeah, I am a little bit skeptical, I must admit, just because I don't know that my view was maybe really listened to during the work group, but maybe now it'll hold a little more value. But again, I think I'm happy to sit at the table and try and give some insight.
The reason for my question, Ashley, was that it came out of the last meeting. You didn't sound like it, but everyone else sounded like you were all in agreement on what was going on. And I didn't think necessarily you quite were.
Yes, those conversations took place. Yes, I would agree with that assessment, Mark. Yeah. Seth, I saw your hand up, and then Jeff.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally support you doing that. I appreciate you spending the time to do that. And I wish for your sake and all of our sake that it's productive. So good luck on that front. Just to backpedal to the executive session, I agree. I don't think we need it tonight, especially with only 4 members here. But I think that we definitely do need to do that when we have more information. So keeping that on all the agendas coming up until it happens would be great.
Thank you, Seth. I totally agree with you on that one. Yeah. So Jeff?
Yeah, I just wanted to add just to that previous discussion really quickly about that. I also just wanted to make very clear that the meeting that Ashley and I were both invited to is town staff and town representatives only. There's no members from SPPF or the Coastal Conservancy or the Land Council or Madden Conservation. No one else. It's just that town group. So before anything gets crazy, just want to make sure that that's clear because I know how sometimes that goes. But that's it.
Thank you, Jeff. Mark?
Have you been served yet, Ashley? Or Jeff?
No.
For the appeal?
No. I feel like that'll be a nice Christmas present for us because the deadline is right before Christmas.
I honestly, between all of us here, my gut feeling tells me that we'll get service as absolutely close to that deadline as possible, probably. If it's waited this long, my guess is it's probably trying to sit as long as possible for a lot of different reasons.
So if there are no more commissioners' comments, I'll give it over to Jeff, although we've already asked a lot of you during this.
That's all right. So I just wanted to make sure from everybody, before I say everyone have a nice holiday, I did send out kind of that draft schedule for next year. I tried to make it work as best possible for everybody. Also trying to leave some space if we wanted to try to have a couple workshop meetings in there for either pre-application things or obviously regulations. And I know we're still looking to do kind of a special one here sooner than later for regulations. But just wanted to get that on everyone's radar. And then we'll probably put in for those times staying on Thursday for next year too. So I think hopefully that works out and everyone can have that schedule in advance. And other than that, I feel like there was something else I wanted to say and I don't remember because it's 8:30. So everyone have a nice Thanksgiving and we'll see everyone on this. Oh, I remember. Thank goodness. Mark and Seth, do you want to either stop by tomorrow to sign forms or do you want me just to email them to you in the morning and you can do it then?
It's easier to email if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll stop by as usual.
Can I ask a huge favor, Seth and Mark? If I send them to you like before 9 a.m. tomorrow, could you get them back to me by noon?
Yep, no worries.
Yes. If I email you the forms to sign? Perfect. And then Linda and Ashley, if you could come anytime after noon, I'll have those ready for you to sign right down front with Ann Medina.
Hopefully I'm not down for the count. I got my booster shot of Moderna today, and so far I'm hanging out.
So,
Does some require a real signature? Is that why you need real people there, Jeff?
I have to have at least one real signature. So.
And I always go in to sign.
So.
Yeah.
Linda likes to climb the stairs, so she stops by.
Stairs.
Yeah. Jeff, I'll be by at like 2:30 right after school.
Yeah, no worries. I'll have them out front for you in case I'm not around.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, at this point, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
I'll move.
Second.
All right. So by roll vote, Beal,
Yes.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Williams.
Aye.
Oh, this like little power crew of us tonight. Nice job, everybody.
Yeah, nice work, everyone.
See you
All
later.
right.
Have a
Have a
happy
good night, everyone.
evening.
You too.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yep. Bye.